It's the 1960s, a new era of rebellion and hope. But have things really changed? They say when history repeats, the stakes are doubled. The story of how Eloise Page shaped the CIA continues in the hit drama podcast, Central Intelligence. Listen on BBC Sounds.
When I look back at the manic moments, my memories for some reason, is really clouded. I was at home. I think I just finished having a barbecue, but it was just me. And there was a knock on the kitchen door, and it was a policeman. I remember thinking, what's the policeman doing here? He seemed like a nice chap. I sat down and started showing him, I got a photo of me, the Queen and I, and getting my OBE. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes later, there's another knock on the door. It's another policeman. This time, the policeman is with 5 firemen. They're pompiers, they call them in French. And then a doctor turned up, and he said, we're taking you to hospital. And I said, I'm not going. I was trying to find my way out of it. I had 2 people either side of me hold my arms down. And I was struggling a lot. Then I saw the doctor pull out this whacking great syringe. And I just thought, that was it. I woke up and I had no idea whether I was Arthur, Martha, Tuesday, Thursday, nothing. I thought I was in some kind of police station because the room I was in. Only when the psychiatrist came in, she told me I was in a psychiatric hospital. It was a dark period. The psychiatrist diagnosed me as bipolar. It was a surprise. I started to look back more and more to my life pre-being sectioned. And one of the big questions I asked myself was, how come it's taken me until my 57th year of life to discover that I had bipolar? Finished.
It's finished.
10. Oh, hang on. I found one in the box. I moved to the south of France in 2018, where I live with my wife, Melanie, and bulldog, Harry. I've got really thick chipolata-like fingers. So it's amazing that my food has been really quite delicate. I don't know how the hell that happened. Okay, so those are done. These are antidepressants. These are sleeping tablets. This one moderates my production of dopamine and serotonin. Because if I have too much dopamine and too much serotonin, I can have a manic episode.
It seems to an outsider quite a lot.
It seems to me quite a lot. I've got to remember which ones, and then when it changes, actually, I've got to take them now. I've put on got a nice belly from it. I've gained a lot of weight. And the speed of my voice now is way slower than it was, even when I wasn't in a manic episode. Bipolar is generally extreme mood swings. So can be massive highs and very deep, dark lows. So if I try and imagine a graph here. So the vertical is energy levels, and the horizontal is time. Let's say the graph, this vertical is here. Most people operate sort of this level and do this. Bipolar 1 basically goes like this.
So look, we all have days when we're a little bit high, a little bit low, but people with bipolar, their mood swings are much more severe. The lowest low is terrible. It's severe depression, even suicidality. And the highs are incredibly high, tearing around with lots of energy, lots of ideas, even psychotic delusions. Symptoms of bipolar usually present actually quite early in life, so late teenage, early adult life. So if somebody develops bipolar disorder later in life, they will have lots of questions as to whether they've lived an entire life having not been treated, essentially.
It's lunchtime in the best restaurant in Europe. But it's not in Paris, Rome, or in the West End.
The Fat Duck in Bray, Berkshire, has been voted the world's best. And look how they've done it. Sardine sorbet, bacon and egg ice cream, and snail porridge.
From the beginning, his creativity was through the roof. There was always something bubbling in his mind. I had to bring to him that little bit of structure because he was doing 5 or 6 things at the same time, always. People came to the restaurant and he would be like hyper, like, hey, yeah, but he was cooking, couldn't stop. We were cooking differently, he behaved differently. He was fun. So if you look at that whole progression to TV programs, it wasn't a surprise. He was perfect.
This was a show for the BBC called In Search of Perfection. We did this 2006 to 2007, did 2 series. I just laughed at my little half step then. It's the level of my dancing.
My name is Heston Blumenthal, and I'm chef proprietor of the Fat Duck restaurant in Bray.
It's funny, looking at it now, some of the techniques that we tried seem ridiculous, but they weren't. I remember doing Peking duck, and they blow air between the skin and the flesh to make it really crisp. So we took the duck to the petrol station.
There we go.
And used the tyre pump to blow air into this duck. And we hid behind the petrol pump so no one saw us.
Oh, yeah!
Do you think there were any signs of bipolar back then?
I can't think of any signs of bipolar back then. There are moments where my creativity felt unstoppable.
Make sure you put the valve over the hole in the top of the box. Take the vacuum cleaner.
I felt elation, really high elation, but I didn't drop into long periods of depression.
You read about bipolar and how it's got the highs, the manic, you've got the lows and the depression. I never saw the lows. I didn't see those. I say he was 99.9% of the time up.
How would you describe those periods of intense creativity?
I think it's a bit like a kid in a sweet shop. The shop is full of these delicious sweets and you want all of them. Then the roof opens and somebody just rains down on you all the sweets that you could possibly want. They're just raining down on you. That's what it's like in my head. Ideas will be flowing really, really quickly. It might involve pairing ingredients that are very surprising to put together. It might involve listening to something while you're eating, smelling something while you're listening to something while you're eating. Looking back at it, was that creativity down to bipolar? I have no idea.
When we're talking about mood, mood can go in any direction. Like everything, everything's on a spectrum. So in the middle, bang in the middle, is mood being stable or euthymic, we say. The mood can go a little bit low, it can become severely low, so mild, moderate, severe depression. In the other direction, it can go into hypomania or mania. Hypomania is when there is the mood elevating a little bit, there's a bit more energy, maybe we're not sleeping, maybe we're becoming a bit more creative. Often patients do say, I really enjoy my mania. I hate the depressions. I much prefer the hypomania or even the manic states.
Chief, you all right? Yeah, yes. When I first came out of hospital at the beginning, it felt like I was slightly zombified from the medication. I've changed a lot in the sense of my massive highs and lows have been ironed out. I'm much calmer, don't have those manic phases.
And went to that lighter foam on our last tasting, so it was more seafoody.
Yeah, the foam before, to me it worked because it had a strong lemon thyme character to it. I think because we're talking about the beetroot and the heart of palm, they're not up to what the other dishes can be.
It was a year ago. He was out of the clinic, and the first thing that I told him is, look, we have to rebuild everything, bit by bit. I think it's the scariest thing that can happen to any human being. Who is not scared to lose his mind and had to go through this process?
I was thinking, was I in manic phase, mania, when I was creating those dishes? I don't know, but it would make sense. If the manic phases is when I did all the creativity and imagination, what happens next? I don't know. Coolio.
All right. Excellent. Thanks.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Are you at all worried that you might not get that creativity back?
Yes. Yeah, I am. I've come back to the UK to check in on my restaurants. I'm staying in Bray, next door to the Fat Duck. I'm wondering what my life will be like now my mood is more under control. So I've invited over psychiatrist Dr. Nick Pryor. Nick.
Hi, Heston. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you.
Yeah, real pleasure.
Nick has bipolar himself, so he understands the situation both as a doctor and as a patient.
Yeah, there was a lot of mental health in my family. My mother has bipolar. She just made some quite serious attempts on her life. It's had a big influence on her life, a big influence on my relationship with her. And her mother, she committed suicide or what we now call completed suicide. I get suicidal thoughts, but they're what we would call in psychiatry talk kind of passive suicidal thoughts. So I'm lying in bed, can hardly leave my bedroom, and I'm just thinking how hopeless and I'm worthless and I should just evaporate. I wish I could just evaporate.
Yes.
But it's not writing a note or actually harming myself. I've never gotten to that point.
No, me neither.
I am fascinated about what it must feel like at your age to suddenly have this point of reflection. Did you find that some of your great breakthroughs did come in spurts of creativity and energy?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think I should be worried about whether the medication I'm taking could have a negative effect on my imagination and creativity?
So this is a good and important question, especially given your background, Heston. What we do know is that bipolar can create certain environments for the individual. Being disinhibited and having a higher risk appetite allows you to do things that other people won't try. So that creates an increased chance of potentially some moments of beauty and creativity. I would argue that the sacrifice you make by allowing the bipolar to go rampant, and potentially you have these moments of brilliance, does have a negative impact. And that's one of the main reasons that I take my medication, I do therapy, I look after myself, is because I want to be a consistent, loving husband and father to my wife and my kids. And I think if I were you, I'd be thinking, I've had that far, I've had those enlightened moments, I've created some things amazing, and actually maybe this phase of my life is about consolidating some of those things and not searching for it again, potentially. But I don't know how you feel about that. Can you sit with mediocrity? Being mediocre, is that something a word that you find difficult?
Think about literacy. Yes.
He is still on a journey, he knows that, and he is still asking questions. And I feel quite, that's the best place for a patient to be in. I also really did feel the anxiety and nervousness around the use of medication and creativity, especially given the career that he's had.
It's Heston Blumenthal, ladies and gentlemen. Heston, is it Blumenthal or Blumenthal?
Blumenhell.
Blumenthal.
Next thing you know, he's just becoming huge, right? He's becoming Heston.
My name became a brand.
We're going to use 4 cheeses in this sauce.
I had a range of foods in Waitrose, I had a range of barbecues, I had a range of kitchen equipment. I mean, everything I look back at it was going at full throttle.
Got back yesterday to Australia. Very busy time over there. Landed crack of dawn, quick shower, came over here.
We've got the Fat Duck, the Perfectionist Cafe at Heathrow, dinner in the Mandarin in London, dinner in Australia, and the Hind's Head in Bray. Plus all the TV shows. There was always something to be worked on.
This was all about thanking those who'd organised her Diamond Jubilee celebrations.
This is the first time I've seen the actual hamper. We tried to get one of these for today, and they've all sold out. And there it is, the largest soft serve 99 plus flake in the world.
I ended up becoming a hamster on a wheel. When I was self-medicated with cocaine. I didn't realise I was self-medicating at the time, but I was absolutely self-medicating. And the more time goes on since I've come out of hospital, the more I can see how extreme those were. It reached a point where I started to worry about my mental health. I knew that I had a busy head, but I didn't know if it was more busy than anyone else's head. So I looked up whether I was autistic. I'd done some research on various neurodiverse conditions, but I didn't even think about bipolar. And then this doctor that I'd met at dinner said he thinks I've got ADHD. So I then went and got myself tested, and that was in 2017. Well, the ADHD diagnosis, it explained quite a lot of things. It explained enough for me to live with it, if that makes sense. So,
So it can take sometimes, in fact, we know on average about 10 years to get a diagnosis of bipolar, certainly in the UK. That's really complicated as to why, partly because people are presenting with symptoms, maybe clinicians who see them say it's just depression, it's not bipolar. They haven't fully identified that it was a hypomanic episode or even a manic episode, and they're not tying the symptoms together to form a bipolar diagnosis. Receiving a diagnosis of bipolar is quite scary, it's stigmatizing, but actually we have to also remember it's completely treatable.
over the last few weeks, my psychiatrist has switched me to a different drug, lithium, and I'm starting to feel sharper. But I still want to understand how other creative people have kept their spark. So I've come to Letchworth to meet artist Sarah Graham, who was diagnosed with bipolar in 2015. Hello, Sarah.
Hey.
How are you doing?
Lovely to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Welcome to my studio.
Wow. Look at this. Look at the texture in that. Fantastic.
So I'm a photorealist and my art is very colourful and bold and out there and, you know, and I think that reflects that side of me.
Yeah.
But then with my bipolar, I've suffered really significantly with depression.
Were you, because you're so creative, were you scared of losing that creativity at any point?
Terrified, yeah.
Were you worried about the effect that the medication would have?
It's such an interesting question because I know a lot of people feel that medication dumbs them down and, you know, I have not been short of ideas.
No.
Particularly recently, I've come up with all these new ideas to take my work in a new direction. And I'm on an antidepressant, a mood stabiliser and an antipsychotic.
Sarah was hospitalised due to a manic episode that led to psychosis. When you lose touch with reality and become convinced of things that just aren't true.
My mania was reaching a crescendo. I thought I was going to be meeting the Queen and Prince Philip for breakfast.
Yeah.
They were going to be thanking me for this,
Yeah.
you know, what I'd done as in my role as an MI5 spy.
Of course.
And you know, I can laugh about it now because there are parts of it that are very, you know, it's just wild where my brain went. But there was a guy that I wanted to meet the Queen and Prince Philip with me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get his attention. He was up in his flat, and there was a lorry coming down the street, and I got in the road and lay down in front of the lorry to try and get this guy to pay attention to me. Lots of people called the police. I mean, this was happening around 6 a.m. in the morning.
Of course it was.
Yeah, I hadn't slept for 24 hours at this point. 7 police officers turned up and sectioned me.
Just took you to hospital.
Off I went in an ambulance, yeah. There was a weird dichotomy. I knew I was in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to be there, but I also thought I had superpowers, and I thought the hospital was an academy for people with superpowers. My consciousness was kind of acting out these two realities, and I was so kind of, I made a friendship bracelet for Putin.
That is brilliant.
In my mind, I was capable of world peace. I know that sounds...
No, it doesn't sound... To me, it doesn't sound... I'm smiling because, you know, I can relate to it. I didn't start wearing my underpants over my trousers, by the way. I haven't gone that far. Despite the drama of her manic episode, it is depression which Sarah feels had the more profound impact on her life. And she's keen to share with me exactly how she felt.
This was in 2015. I was in the middle of depression. I don't think you're recording.
Good.
Why are you doing that?
So we can look back on it when you're better.
There's a reason that the Monopoly went missing, because I'm jinxed.
It's got nothing to do with you.
People that work with me
Such a mix.
must get hurt. You know, it's tried to help me get hurt. It's all these negative beliefs that, you know, anyone listening to me can see it's... I'm jinxed. I give up. I give up.
Can you...
And it's like...
Can you remember all of that?
Yeah.
There's something, but it's not genuine, because in here I'm empty vessel.
that was a 4-month-long depression in the end. And I was like that for 4 months.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing that you can bring yourself to show that. Really powerful.
Yeah. But, you know, it's an illness.
Yes.
I have been to the darkest places I think anyone can go to.
Oh, yes.
And I've come through the other side, and it's empowering.
I was surprised by Sarah's honesty talking about her darkest moments. It's something I've never spoken about publicly.
Do you find it hard to talk about depression?
Yeah, I do. I do find it difficult to talk about depression.
So this next clip is from a show you've previously told me you found difficult.
Elena.
Hello.
So what are you doing?
I'm making toffee apple with a twist.
And what's the twist?
It's got a savoury centre.
Are you putting any unexpected combinations in this?
Yes.
You are?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yes.
My biggest thing with this show, I was no good on there. My mind was like hollow. I don't know how to express it. I was tired as well, so I was in the breaks. I was laying down on the sofa in my dressing room, listening to tutored meditation in the gaps, just to try and get my mind into a different space, because it was in a dark, really dark place. I was probably quite heavily depressed then. Thought, I wondered if there was a gun here, would I use it? There wasn't. And then I thought of other ways of ending it, and then decided at the end that I wasn't ready for that. But they all went through my head.
Can we stop that one there?
Yep.
If you have bipolar and it's untreated, it's potentially really dangerous. You know, the depressions can become so severe that somebody becomes suicidal, and the manias equally can become really quite severe. And both depression and mania can keep coming back and have profound impacts on somebody's quality of life. So actually, the illness gets worse if it's untreated over many years, over many decades.
Looking back, I can now see that my mood swings were becoming more extreme. The depression gave way to what I now know were periods of mania. So coming back to the sweet shop analogy, with hindsight, when I was in a manic state, there were so many ideas. So it's raining sweets. The imagination was running so fast, you can't catch them all. I couldn't turn one of them into something creative because it was being interrupted by another piece of imagination. And it's just not good generally.
So Heston, what I'm going to play for you now is an interview you did for BBC Click, which is a technology show.
Back in 2020.
Okay, this will be interesting to watch because I don't remember it.
I think it's time to get a view from someone who is world famous at using science and tech in the kitchen. It's only Heston Blumenthal. Hey Heston, how are you doing?
Oh, very good. How are you?
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Getting used to this
all
new
right.
normal.
All right.
My word.
So I'll come on to this in a bit, But one of the great strengths of human beings is their ability to connect. We have human beings and human doings. So we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system. So we have a relationship with ourselves, like Alice in Wonderland, big me, mini me.
He's asked me one question.
But then we also
How are you?
have a relationship with the people
That's it.
around us. So we've got to grow up and go to school and go to work and get degrees and earn some money and have a pension and do all of these things.
And I'm going through a whole kind of evolution of human beings.
Our language. In Tibet, they have 72,000 different words for emotions, but it's not enough.
Just haven't stopped talking yet. I haven't come up for air. Must be breathing through my ears or something.
You can edit this out, actually, if you want.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I mean, this is fabulous. This is not what I was expecting.
Do you remember what this interview was supposed to be about?
No, I'm sure you'll tell me. I can't even guess. I mean, was it about the evolution of human beings?
No, it was about whether you could use robot arms in kitchens.
Was that what it was about?
Yeah. We're about half an hour in and we haven't got there yet.
I could answer that really easily now. I think if we use robots to do the jobs that human beings... Oh, no. I'll leave it.
When the apple fell from the tree, it took him 10 years between that and its formula, but he didn't actually consider the fact the Earth was also spinning up to the apple.
Oh, no.
When you look at a fire flickering or sunlight flickering on the sea or moonlight on the sea and you listen to music...
Sci-fi's tried to condense a whole book into... I don't know, but it's...
If you relax your eyes,
it's full on.
Dance. The music and the fire.
Would you say this is footage of you when you're manic?
It could be.
Yes.
I want to put the shadow back into the sunlight. I want to put the inside out back into the outside in. I want to put the being back into the human. What about our relationship? If you hate your telephone, don't blame it on the phone. Actually, look at your relationship with the telephone.
To live with me, if I was talking like that all the time, I think that brings tears to my eyes because of the thought of what they had to put up with. The potential that I might have upset, troubled, worried, emotionally harmed the people that love me and that I love.
Do you think you might have done?
Well, certainly Melanie, because she saw it escalate.
What impact do you think your manic highs had on your children?
That's a good question. I don't know because I haven't asked them.
Is that something you'd be prepared to do? Is that something we should do?
Yeah, we should ask them. Hello. We should be there in 20 minutes. See you, bye. I'm off to see Jack, my son, who's about 15 minutes down the road from Bray in Marlow, and he's opened his own restaurant.
Service, please.
I'm slightly nervous. Maybe I don't want to know the answers to some of my questions I'm going to ask. But, you know, what was it like?
Right, how are you?
Likewise, I'm good, thanks. So I've done the sort of master interview, and Joe, who's interviewing me, said, "What do your kids think of your bipolar?" And I stopped. I thought I haven't spoken to them about it until now.
You know, we find it difficult as a family. Yeah. Obviously, you're kind of keeping everything together. It's nice now to have, not a label on it, but something we can refer back to and think, oh, he wasn't just being a dick, type of thing. Yeah. We just wanted a relaxing conversation with our dad. And we weren't allowed to have one.
Because I just didn't.
He just didn't want, exactly, he didn't want it. He didn't want to know anyone's thoughts. I just don't think he gave a shit. Even if I said, yeah, we're all right, we're just doing this, and you would just literally talk over and then go, I'm doing this, that, I'm going to change the world. It always started off really well for a few minutes. And then it just turned...
A few minutes?
I have to walk away sometimes. I had to go like, we're not doing this. And every time we try to hype ourselves up to come see you, and it was like a massive...
I'm so sorry.
If we plan it 3 weeks in advance, mentally just getting prepared just to see you for half an hour. It was horrible. And it was constant. And there's nothing I can do to help you.
Get myself together.
Yeah. Come.
You know, talking about this happened. And I realised it's not me being bipolar. Well, it is me being bipolar. It's damaging the people I love. The people around me. So I'm sorry.
All right. Right. And I don't think you have to say that, because we know you kind of are in a bit of a world of your own on certain points, and this conversation needs to be had, doesn't it? I think, because we're...
Yes.
But I just want you to know that I love you. I forgive you for everything. I'm really proud to be your son.
Just waiting for my lips to stop quivering. I want to thank you. Thank you for this. I want you to know just how sincerely sorry I am. I love you. I love you, my children, so much. And I can see it now.
Should we hug it out?
Come on. Thank you. Thank you. Now I can see how distant I became as a father. I didn't realise I was hurting any of my kids in those moments. But that can be changed now. So this is a really big turn of a page.
I know this is difficult, but I'd like to talk about the time just before you were sectioned.
My perception of this, the days leading up to my hospitalisation and the reality that I've since learned from Melanie are really quite different pictures.
At this point, we are in mid-October, between September and October, yeah. And I just feel everything escalating. The levels of energy, the sensitivity, let's say, the way of reacting to things.
I didn't really see that there was anything wrong. I was in a good mood. I was happy.
You could see that he was all over the place.
I went to visit Heston in France. I had no idea things were spiraling out of control. I had no idea about that. Pretty much from the get-go, he was hyper. Heston's dog, Harry, one of these days that we were there, he was stood there and he was like, yeah, I've been working on this thing where I talk to him telepathically. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, watch. Look at the dog, look at the dog, look at the dog. You know, watch this. He felt this was, you know, important and real. He seemed obviously intense, And his train of thought was different.
He wasn't sleeping anymore, but at all, at all. He had ideas, but the ideas were at kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I had these feelings of, I say grandiosity, or I was like Superman. I believed that I could change the world. For example, I thought I could solve the water crisis by getting everyone access to clean drinking water.
TV chef Heston Blumenthal shocked the world today by bringing an end to the water crisis. It comes just days after he successfully brokered world peace.
How the hell was I going to do that all by myself? I don't know. But I believed in it.
He was started to lock himself in his universe. And we were absolutely disconnected. Something changed. He started to really being obsessed with, yes, I need to organize my will. Okay, anyone can do that. But why I do not organize my death? We have a connection with the number 7, so why not in 7 years? And then it turns like, why we don't do it together? It's just, something is not okay. At this point, for me, these things were not okay.
It sort of feels a bit weird to sort of say it out loud, but Heston's one of those people that I sort of thought that maybe at some point I'd get that phone call. That he wasn't, you know, he hadn't done well. I had that feeling.
He started to have this hallucination.
I just saw this gun on the table. I was inquisitive, I'd say. I touched it, I didn't pick it up. Afterwards, I wondered if it was actually a real gun on the table, would I have used it? And I asked myself this question. I'd like to think I wouldn't have done, but I don't know. That disturbed Melanie.
You realize that he started to really be a danger to himself. Unfortunately, you can't bring someone to reason to follow you to the hospital. There's just one way. It's, yeah, calling the medical team to see if they section him or not. It's a lot of guilt. It's a lot of guilt. It's a lot of questions. It's me. I had to keep in my mind, like, he's going to hate me. He's going to hate me. But at this point, if I left him like that, it could be also not helping him, looking at him, I don't know, dying. Because it was that. We were on this point. Yeah, it's tough.
I spent 2 weeks in the psychiatric hospital, then moved to a specialist clinic for 6 weeks. So it was a total of 2 months. Would I have sectioned myself? No way. She had to do it for me and for herself as well. Looking back at it, the alternative was not an option, because I wouldn't be here anymore. My bipolar had to progress to a point where I was a danger to myself before anyone could raise the alarm. Being known for my energy and creativity might have made people less likely to question my behavior. It's estimated that 1 in 3 people with bipolar only get their diagnosis after being hospitalized. So I've been speaking openly about my condition to help raise awareness. I'm in a lucky position that I have a platform to actually spread the word, to make people more aware of the condition.
What kind of impact then has the diagnosis had on you?
The more time passes since I came out of hospital, the more I can look back and think, oh my God, that behaviour wasn't normal.
I mean, how are you now?
They've been reducing the doctors reducing my medication, but I feel I'm stabilising, which is really good.
Heston, thanks so much. Really appreciate you talking so openly.
Thank you. Afterwards, I was overwhelmed by the number of people who got in touch to share their own stories. Many told me about the poor level of support they've received. There are an estimated 1 million people with bipolar here in the UK. Are we doing enough to look after them?
So this is the main BBC newsroom. It's one of the biggest newsrooms in the world.
In the world?
Yeah.
That's the studio over there.
That's one of the news studios. If you walk in the background of that one, then you can be sometimes seen.
Health investigations reporter Chloe Hayward has spent months researching bipolar care, talking to patients up and down the country.
More people have bipolar in this country than have dementia. But when I sent emails to NHS England saying, please, can I have some information around the number of people with bipolar, the number of beds for people with bipolar? And they was like, oh, really sorry, we can't give you that information, but we can give it to you for dementia and schizophrenia.
So do you think the health service are not doing enough?
I think when it comes to bipolar, there is a lot of capacity to do more. One of the key things is the fact that in this country, it's total potluck. Where you live reflects how good your care is. This map, this is number of psychiatrists available per 100,000 people in the country. So in Scotland, you've got 22 per 100,000 people. And think how spread out Scotland is. So the distances people are having to travel to try and get that care. But when you look at Wales and the Southwest, so Wales, less than 17, Southwest, less than 16 psychiatrists per 100,000 of the population. And we're not talking about just psychiatrists that are looking after people with a bipolar diagnosis. We're talking about people with dementia, people with schizophrenia, we're talking about people with depression.
And of course, you need a psychiatrist to get a diagnosis.
Absolutely. You cannot get a bipolar diagnosis without seeing a psychiatrist in this country.
So what's the result of this poor level of care regarding bipolar?
The numbers are very stark in terms of quality of life and outcome for life. So the number of people taking their own lives who have a bipolar diagnosis is on the rise. So quite in contrast to overall population rates where actually the suicide rates are falling.
I thought Chloe said some things that were really quite disturbing. I mean, the sheer lack of psychiatrists that we've got in this country means that people, to get a diagnosis, they have to wait for years. And when you consider you've got the manic highs, where they can be wonderful for people who do some very dangerous things, and then you get the manic lows, where you have attempted or actual suicide. It's really dangerous. It's a terrible situation. Chloe has suggested I come to Clacton-on-Sea to meet a family that's experienced this firsthand. Rebecca McClellan, a student paramedic, was diagnosed with bipolar, aged 22.
My bipolar right now be popping, right? I'm in a mixed episode, it's been like it for a few weeks. All in a day's work, if you like.
But just 2 years later, in her flat in Ipswich, she died by suicide. Her mother, Natalie, feels that the poor care Rebecca received contributed to her death. So, Natalie, tell me about Rebecca.
Well, where do you start about Rebecca? I'll show you some photographs of her because it's important for you to see who she was.
Lovely smile.
She did. She was always smiling when she was well. She was a very bright, funny, beautiful, well-thought-of person.
There's some beautiful photographs there.
Yeah, I don't think she really took a bad one.
When did you first realise Rebecca was struggling?
So she's about 21 at that point when she actually first went to the doctors and said, I think there's something going on
So
here.
she was aware and started to try and do something about it?
She did, yeah. Yeah, she went and talked to them. I think she thought that they were going to give her some antidepressants and off she'd go. I don't think for 1 second she thought that she was going to get the diagnosis that she did. And she didn't get it straight away either. It wasn't until 2022 that she was actually diagnosed with bipolar.
Yeah. Over the next year, Rebecca tried various medications to manage her bipolar, but they proved ineffective and her well-being started to deteriorate.
So we get to sort of May 23 and she had serious suicidal ideation. She was telling them that she was suicidal. She didn't tell anyone else. She was having massive depressive episodes at that point. And she was ringing the mental health unit saying, I need help. I need someone to ring me back. I need to come in.
And what happened?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They didn't call her back. They didn't get back in touch with her. And that takes us to the 7th of August. She presented herself at the mental health crisis unit. And that was where she'd been referred to by her GP. That was where they told her to go if she was in crisis. She begged for help. I've got video footage of them talking over her for 6 minutes. I'll play you the video.
I can't go over to A&E. I work for the ambulance service. I'm not going over to A&E. Like I say, I don't care who it is, any kind of mental health professional, any kind of mental health professional. It doesn't even have to be my team, there's psychiatrist, anything. But I say, every single time I get promised to call back and nothing, and literally nothing, and nothing.
You are going to see if there is no new able to see you, and I'm sorry about that.
I saw my GP on Wednesday. She called personally herself, raising her concerns. I'd actually called the day before, and they said that they'd call me and have me in, and things have reached a point, and I don't mean to be a bitch, but I'm not leaving till I speak to someone.
We'll call police or security.
Please do. Like, I need to speak to anyone at all. I need to speak to someone, anyone at all.
I'll call the police.
Yeah.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous. She's just been kicked away.
Yeah. And that's really difficult to watch. Really difficult. Sorry. Sorry. And I saw her about a week and a half later. And they put her on an antidepressant at that point.
In the following months, Rebecca's mental health improved, but after a suspected adverse reaction to one of her medications, her psychiatrist insisted that she switch to lithium instead. Lithium is a safe and effective treatment, but requires careful management.
She was terrified of the lithium. You have to titrate off of all of your drugs.
Yeah.
Then go on to the lithium.
I've gone through that.
I think she thought that she was going to have to do that with no mental health support, because that's what she'd experienced. That was her whole experience, that she was going to be titrated off of everything.
With no support?
No support. She'd rang them back and said, I really don't want to go on lithium. She rang them and contacted them several times over a couple of days. They were supposed to come back to her, and they didn't come back to her. And then she took her life on the 20th. So she thought that she had no option. You know.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. It's not easy.
No, it can't be.
No. And I think losing her is awful. Losing her when something could have been done about it, or certainly her suffering could have been less, is far worse. You know, she, on paper, had it all, Heston. And I think, like yourself, you know, she was successful, she was popular, she was doing the career she wanted, she had a flat, she had a nice car. Yeah, she had it all. But actually, that doesn't mean that it can't take you. It can't take over your life if it's not managed correctly. And actually, all she wanted was some help to manage it properly. And I try not to be bitter, but I get very angry She absolutely suffered more than she needed to suffer. And that's, you know, that's a fact. That's a fact. That's tough. You don't ever want your children to suffer.
That... I don't want to get into it.
Oh. It's tough, isn't it? It's really tough.
Yeah.
And this must be really close to bone for you, because this is what you live, just like she did. You know? And you're not on your own. Other people are out there feeling the same.
Yeah, exactly. That was an eye-opener, for sure. I was lucky in that with my sectioning, I was being monitored, and then afterwards I had support. But the nature of this condition, if there isn't the care, the support network around individuals with bipolar, then look at Rebecca, people will take their lives. And the longer it takes to get this sorted out, the more lives will be lost.
We are letting people down in the UK who have bipolar disorder. Someone with bipolar untreated can die at least 10 or 15 years earlier than the general population. And that's a real tragedy, and that doesn't need to happen. You can have a perfectly beautiful, normal life. Sadly, we just don't have the structures and the services that support patients. So that's what we need to change.
It's a nice day for Aston.
Yeah, it's lovely. Over the last 30 years, the fact that has shaped me more than anything else in my life. Funny enough, maybe the hardest thing of all in that recovery process when I was in hospital is that you took me away from the restaurant. Okay, here we go.
Hello, how are you? I'm very good. Oh, nice to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, how's it going?
How are you?
Good. Hi, chaps. Chapettes. When we started making this programme, I was concerned, apprehensive, let's say, that maybe my creativity and my imagination would disappear. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah,
Good.
okay.
Hi, chaps. But I'm still full of creativity, imagination, and happy to be alive. This is snail porridge, the famous snail porridge.
Was I worried for him? Yeah. But I can only see him getting more positive from here. That's who he is.
And now we've got my husband who is waking up with a smile, who is motivated. It's a process, but it's a good one. It's a good one.
So this is the chocolate room. I still have bipolar, and I had bipolar before. I just don't have those manic states. Never a million miles away from a jug of liquid nitrogen here. The peaks of my manic highs have shrunk, and the depths of the lows have risen. But I'm still Heston. Want to know more about the lived experience of bipolar? Watch the Open University's new animation, which brings a personal account to life. Scan the QR code on screen or visit bbc.co.uk/bipolar and follow the links to the Open University.
Sorry to say, it won't have any gel inside them whatsoever.
No artificial enhancement?
No.
No.
No, not at all. Don't believe in that. I mean, imagine meeting a guy and then getting... No way.
Michelle is up against some formidable competition, all exploiting the 90s trend of boosting your assets.
Wonder Bra came out in the mid-90s with their Hello Boys ad. Eva Herzegovina was pushing her boobs together with the black plunge bra, and everyone went, oh my gosh. All of a sudden, the whole focus was on cleavage.
Her two biggest rivals are multinational corporations, Playtex, who own Wonder Bra, and Gossard.
The push-up bra market is very, very competitive. We are one of the leaders in the European market in push-up.
People always, when they want to start a, inverted commas, bra wars thing, always compare it with Wonder Bra. I always refer back to my favourite team, Manchester United. People are always knocking Manchester United and trying to take them on. Same thing with Wonder Bra, you know, that is the Manchester United of bras at the moment.
Unlike Michelle, they have multi-million-pound advertising budgets.
For the ultimate cleavage, the new Ultra Bra from Gossard.
The latest ad from Gossard is causing quite a storm. Does it imply that women are bimbos, that cup size is more important than brain size?
Yes.
In Glasgow, Michelle and Michael prepare for the Selfridges launch. And Michelle misses no opportunity to paint herself as David versus Goliath.
For me personally, it's very, very difficult when you're taking on the biggest lingerie company in the world, Playtex. So this small Scottish wee company taking them on, they're probably like, oh, who do they think they are?
It's launch day, the moment of judgment for Michelle and her business.
It took me 3 years to invent Ultimo and create it. It's been an incredible amount of hard work and lots of risk. When I start something, I've got to see it through to the end.
I remember Michelle showing up for the launch, and she had barely had her baby. For Michelle, Selfridges was a bit of a make it or break it shot. She was shaking. I actually remember her shaking. That's how much she'd invested in this brand and wanted it to work.
And Michelle has a plan or two up her sleeve.
What we're here to do today is launch the best cleavage enhancing bra that's ever been on the market.
Honestly.
And the whole idea is about it's comfortable on you, but it's tough on plastic surgeons because it just feels so much like it's your own that you won't need to employ the services of a plastic surgeon to get this great bust. Keep those shoulders back and those boobs out, OK?
I don't think their competitors are taking them that seriously, and I think they'll be in for a bit of a shock.
Michelle had come with a whole bunch of ideas for how to launch. The big thing that I remember was we had twin models, identical twins. One had a regular bra on and one had the Ultimo bra. And seeing the difference was honestly the most effective way of showing, wow, this is what the bra does.
The gentlemen of the press didn't need much encouragement to play this game of spot the difference. Two identical twins in the department store window, one with the new Ultimo bra, one without. One twin did seem to stand out from the crowd.
It works like an extra pair of hands. When you pull the breast inwards and upwards, the gel sinks to where you need it.
I'm told there's nothing like having an extra pair of hands on your breasts. And you'll see this picture in your paper tomorrow.
It was causing chaos in the streets, and the cops, much as they loved what they were looking at, they had a job to do and they had to control the crowds. But that just adds to press, right? I mean, all press is good press.
Well, these bras are all very well, and they may give the desired uplift and support, but they don't keep you very warm on a cold day on Oxford Street, do they?
No, I'm freezing.
Goosebumps all over the place. Not that I'm looking.
competing with the biggest bra companies in the world. I mean, I'm just this small, me and my own. It's very frightening, I'll be honest with you, it is frightening. I think they'll vote to get me, but I can just keep trying my best. If I fail, I fail, but if I do fail, I'll never forget this day.
She was a good little Scottish girl back then. She was a little bit imposter syndrome, I think, at the time. And who wouldn't be? She was a woman getting into a man's world with a product that was launched right at the top of the lingerie industry at the biggest department store in the UK. And we sold product, which was really good, because that affected my bottom line.
On the day of the launch, Selfridges sold a month's supply of the Ultimo bra.
I was considering for some time to have a breast augmentation operation, but with this new invention, I don't think I'll have one.
It's been 3 years hard work. My house is up to the bank. I was either going to lose my house today or keep my house. And I think, as you can see today, I'm going to keep my house.
Michelle Mone started out as a part-time model. Now she's head of a worldwide company.
The bra is a success, but for Michelle, that is not enough.
We are growing this range into everything from gel bras every day, bras with no gel in them, glamour bras, corsets, swimwear, nightwear, Ultimo sports bras, Ultimo maternity bras, Ultimo everything.
Do you still pinch yourself and think, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I do still, because I come in and I always say to Michael, my husband, look at this, look at the bathroom, look at this, it's got a CD player. Because I was never ever used to this. You know, I mean, when I went on holiday, it was to Butlins. But I mean, look at Claridge's and they take you up to your room and they say, madam, oh, come and see this, come see this. There are 4 buttons, right? One is for the maid, one is for the valet, one is for the butler, and one is for privacy. Isn't that so cool?
She had 2 driving forces. One was to be very rich and one was to be very famous.
I didn't make it overnight. I mean, it was years and years of hard work and determination. What keeps my feet firmly on the ground is that, you know, I have at the back of my mind that I could lose it all tomorrow. And, you know, you should never get too big for your boots.
My name is Dr. Ted Anders, and that's the doctor part is for psychologist. Early in my career, I was an astronaut training manager with NASA. I developed an entrepreneurial management technique, and curious, interesting Scottish entrepreneurs found out about this management technique.
One of Ted's Scottish clients was millionaire Tom Hunter, who was also Michelle's investor.
I first met Michael and Michelle at Sir Tom and Lady Marian's villa in Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat. Sir Tom asked me if I would please meet Michelle and Michael Mone and see if I would please help their little tiny startup company. And so we all sat down and met by the pool and began to chat. You don't necessarily just walk in as an American and hit it right off with East End Glaswegians. I mean, you really do have to take a few knocks, a bit of slagging, as they say, and if you can hold up under that, all right, now we'll go to the next step. And that led us to say, okay, let's go ahead and move together, Michael and Michelle, and do the work.
Angela, here comes another one. Angela. Okay, freeze. In what way is that like real life?
Who's the American nutter? That's Ted.
Think of yourselves as high-octane jet fuel, and that's what needs to come in the door every day. High-octane fuel, ready to go explode with creativity.
Michelle's bra may be a hit, but its success is stretching the business and its employees to the limit.
So when I first visited Ultimo in their new offices and their little warehouse, I obviously went in to look for what's working, what's not working. There were so many orders coming in. We went back into the warehouse and there was her mom and dad packing boxes and making sure inventory was correct. The sales were happening, and somebody had to fulfill it all really quickly.
It's fucking torture. I had to work till 8:30 every single night. The phones were going non-stop. We're short-staffed.
Sorry to interrupt. The orders are like piling up that high. See when you're done with your lunch, can just one of you go through?
You get a 10-minute lunch break. That's it.
I mean, I'm just launching a new range. People are starving and all that, so that's what I keep thinking about. That's what keeps bucking me up.
The Govan office was quite small. There probably was about 15 people there when I started. The staff were loyal to Michelle. They would have done anything to make the business successful and for her. But it probably was a bit more volatile than a normal working place.
Hiya. Well, we said we had a budget of 5.
People were wary of Michelle because she could turn so quickly. If Michelle was going through a difficult time, the atmosphere could be a bit more fraught.
Right, Steph, bye. What do they think we are, mugs? They're just so annoying. They're so annoying.
It was obvious that there was a need for Michael and Michelle to communicate in the workplace in a skilled way they didn't yet have.
I've not got a jacket, it's getting delivered to the Hilton tonight. I don't have trousers, I've got boots that don't fit me, I don't have any tights. I will see you in a few hours. Stay calm.
Despite the increasing stress of running the company, Michelle ensures she never misses a media opportunity.
It was quite regular that we would have cameras in the office.
Michael used to joke. He says you wouldn't believe there's a whole team of us back here. And without us, she wouldn't have a business. But he liked that. He didn't like publicity.
A wee glass of Iron Brew champagne. It's just brilliant, so cheers!
She loved being filmed and she loved having the press there.
Press office, so if they're happy, I'm happy.
One of the first things I saw stacked in the middle of one of the designer workrooms were stacks and stacks and stacks of notebooks of all the press coverage Michelle had generated. It was just remarkable. I think I might say that the press became a place of validation as a professional, as an adult, as a being in the world.
Michelle wants Ultimo to go global. She and Michael have come to Australia for a crucial launch.
Thank you to each and every one of you for making the effort to come along today, and hopefully we'll make it an uplifting experience. Ha 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 ha. Very funny.
Michelle has brought along yet another TV crew who are making a documentary about Ultimo.
I'm nervous, but I'm extremely confident. And I think that, I did not feel this way 6 months ago. And I feel that as the months and months go past, I'm becoming, without being too big-headed, I'm becoming better and better and better. And I get to the stage where everyone doesn't have to rely on me as much. It would be good. And I'm sure Michael feels the same way.
One game ago from 2 years.
And we need time together as a husband and wife, because we really don't at this moment in time have a marriage. Wow. Oh God, I better pull this off or I'm dead.
Just come out with your compact, do a bit of a...
And when I ring, hi girls, how you doing, okay?
We're thrilled to have Bronze Creator with us today, Michelle Mone. Thank you.
It would have to happen when all the cameras are here. Never mind.
After a difficult start, the cameras continue to roll as the relationship with the Australian team starts to sour.
I wanted to kill them. We had to sack a couple of people.
Do you think this going global thing is proving harder than you first thought?
No, we knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't know that we were going to get an absolute nutter that was going to be working with us. I mean, you couldn't have picked a worse person.
She's not smiling there, is she?
Have things really been that bad in Australia?
Yeah.
I got a call from a newspaper saying, "What have you got to say about this big BBC documentary tomorrow night?" I said, "What BBC documentary?" And they said, "Oh, well, BBC sent a team to Australia where she was launching a business, and there was a bit of a disaster, so we'll be showing this." So I phoned up Michelle and I said, "Michelle, what's this about BBC documentary? It's going out tomorrow night." She said, "Oh, I told you about that." I said, "No, you didn't." "Oh, I'm sure I did." "No, you didn't, Michelle." And this was typical of Michelle. She had a strange relationship with the truth. It's very difficult to work with people who won't be honest and own up to me, because then I can mould a story. And she just told me nothing. And I said to her, "That's it, Michelle. I cannot work with clients who don't tell me the truth, so I'm out."
Do you think you've bitten off more than you can chew?
No.
She didn't seem to be fussed in the slightest. She had this massive, deluded self-confidence about her product. So I don't think it fazed her at all.
She's the inventor of the Ultimo bra. Please welcome Michelle Mone.
Whatever the problems behind the scenes, Michelle ensures she remains firmly in the limelight.
Stories would circulate around Michelle Mone. And one of those was that her bra was used in the filming of Erin Brockovich, that Julia Roberts wore one of her bras.
How did you do this? I just went up there and performed sexual favors. 634 blowjobs in 5 days.
So Erin Brockovich was a film about an environmental campaigner who was quite sassy.
Really quite tired.
She always wore a tight shirt and had quite an impressive cleavage. And Michelle Mone had said that it was her Ultimo bra that was worn in the film. And so that story was just repeated ad infinitum.
It's incredible, and the amount of celebrities that are now wearing it worldwide is just unbelievable.
Tell us who.
Basically the film Erin Brockovich, Julia Roberts. I helped Julia Roberts with a couple of things in the film Erin Brockovich as well. Julia Roberts wore it in the film Erin Brockovich.
You know, Erin Brockovich, you know, like anything that made Scotland international. Here's a Scottish entrepreneur who's created a product and it features in a Hollywood film. That is just gold if you're editing a newspaper in Scotland.
These sort of myths are created by journalists writing stories and then referring back to previous articles. And if something hasn't been completely debunked, these facts have a long shelf life. If you've actually bothered to check, somebody involved in the actual making of the film came out and said an Ultimo bra wasn't used in the production.
She obviously sold thousands and thousands of Ultimo bras on the back of a rumour. By the time the truth came out, she would have made a fortune.
Certainly when it came to Michelle Mone, the story was almost too good to debunk. A young woman fighting in a sort of male-dominated business world, making a way for herself. That was a great story to tell.
Okay, we're talking today about how a woman can get rich, so please welcome my next guest, Michelle Mone.
Michelle is increasingly becoming the poster girl for female entrepreneurial success.
So we want to know, because you're this dynamo woman, you had problems with your husband because they can't take this kind of, kind of steely drive. Did he like you more when you were struggling?
He found it difficult, me being his wife, sleeping with them, bringing up the children, and me sitting in boardroom meetings and telling them what to do.
Did you have screaming arguments with him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, screaming arguments. I mean, it was like War of the Roses, Part 2. Because I would let down his tyres, he would lock me in the office. I couldn't stand him. I couldn't stand
Why is he
being
still
with
around
him.
then?
Because we brought in a coach from America who trained in NASA, trained for NASA, the astronauts. Bethany, give me that golf club.
In a bid to address Michelle and Michael's differences, business advisor Ted visits the couple at home.
Come on.
Knock, knock, knock. Michelle opens the door. And she was just flustered. I think she had a diaper and a bottle and something else over her shoulder. And Michael was back in the kitchen saying something to the dog, and Declan was dragging Bethany across the foyer with her diaper. And Michelle's just like, for fuck's sake, just come on in. And it was just, you know, real life, right now.
Beth.
We sat down and had wine. But in the middle of all of that, imagine, Michelle was so proud of her new house, with white carpet, with 3 little kids. And you go, Michelle, no. It was a symbol to her, I believe. Because of Michelle's growing up in poverty, she was never going to fall back even one step. Because one step of falling back would cause that pain of possibility of being back down there again, and that's just not tolerable. Michael came from a stable upper middle class environment, his father a physician, and so for Michael there wasn't that desperation. It's like, could we just calm down here? Could we sort of plateau a little? Not plateau, the business always has to have an upward curve, but does it have to be vertical? No. Michelle's not wired for flatline or marginal or slow. She's just not wired for it.
After a failed attempt to break through in Australia, Michelle is focused on expanding in Britain. She's negotiated a £15 million deal with the department store Debenhams. But what's really getting the press attention is Michelle's decision to sign up a celebrity to model the range.
She's managed to win the heart of rock legend Rod Stewart, and now Penny Lancaster is setting her sights on raising the already high profile of Glasgow-based underwear firm Ultimo's latest racy range. Penny says Rod's also taken a keen interest.
He's very proud, and he did look through all the contact sheets afterwards and made his own little notes on the particular shots that he preferred, and it was a good support for me.
Michelle says the leggy blonde was the obvious choice.
We got on like a house on fire, and she's such a lovely girl and just got on so well with her, and she is so stunning and get the longest legs I've ever seen and the perfect body, so she is the ultimate woman.
Michelle and Michael form a friendship with Penny and Rod. When Penny visits Glasgow, Michelle facilitates press who've taken a keen interest given Rod's popularity in Scotland.
Penny Lancaster, welcome to Scotland.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Scotland today.
Pleasure to be here.
How's your day been so far?
Very, very smooth. The flight was wonderful, and it was a lovely greeting at the airport from Michelle.
What do you think of Scottish men?
Well, if Rod's like Scottish men, then they've got to be all just wonderful, really.
Hey-ho!
Marion Scott was working as a journalist at the Sunday Mail at the time.
Ultimo was going through the roof. Everybody wanted to emulate Penny. Women everywhere thought that, you know, if they bought this beautiful bra, they could end up being like Penny Lancaster, and who knows, you might manage to snag somebody like Rod Stewart.
But when it's time to renegotiate Penny's contract, Michelle spots a business opportunity. Why not replace Penny, Rod's current wife, with his ex, Rachel Hunter?
We then heard rumours that she'd actually signed up Rod's ex to take Penny's place. During the breakup of Rachel and Rod, there were a lot of stories saying that he'd been left broken-hearted. So comparing the two women, you know, created a huge amount of drama and a lot of emotion, you know, raw emotion. Rachel was a supermodel. She would grace the pages of all the big magazines, Vogue, Harper's. It was quite obvious that there was no comparison.
The face of Ultimo is Rachel Hunter, supermodel. We give the newspapers images that they can't refuse.
A lot of newspapers, they were sort of comparing the two women. And the message was, if you were Rod Stewart, who would you choose? Michelle compounded that by comparing her to Ronaldo with a football player from Falkirk. That left a bad taste in many people's mouths. That was one of the first times we saw another side to Michelle Mone.
But it was all getting too much for Rod. After the media's cruel swimsuit comparisons and Michelle Mone's cutting remarks about Penny's limited international appeal, he decided to give Penny a very public show of support.
Marion's colleague got the exclusive.
And it just so happened that Billy Sloan, who is one of Scotland's top music writers, he is very, very friendly with Rod Stewart. He absolutely came right out and said that he felt that she was a manipulative cow.
She was devious, conniving, publicity-seeking. She was a user. When we ran the story, we ran it on page 1, Rod's Revenge. The headline really wrote itself. He said, "I don't think Penny has a bad bone in her body, but Michelle's entire skeleton just reeks of self-interest." Now, that is not something that you just think up off the top of your head. That's obviously been eaten and eaten away at him.
We had the Rod Stewart interview in the bag. We have to give everyone that we're talking about the right of reply. So it's my job to ask her views on what Rod Stewart had said to her. It's always the women that get the dirty jobs. I remember that she was absolutely furious. You know, she was incandescent with rage and she was shouting and screaming. She was very, very, very angry. That's one of the first times she'd had a rough ride from the newspapers and one of the first times that she'd been challenged properly. And it was a woman challenging her. So she wasn't given the opportunity to flutter her eyelashes or you know, try and smooth over what had been said. There was a change, there was a definite change in attitudes from the media. And that was the beginning of the difficult Michelle as well. She was a very controlling person, and that side of her personality was becoming more and more evident. She was becoming very defensive.
Okay, we're rolling.
Yep. Would you be prepared to make an apology at all?
Make an apology for what? I haven't done anything wrong. I have never ever put Penny down. I have only ever protected her.
You allegedly compared Rachel Hunter to footballer Ronaldo and Penny to Falkirk.
I don't know much about football, to be honest. I mean, think of a worldwide star in football, you think of David Beckham or you think of Ronaldo. So I said Ronaldo, and they said, what about Penny? And what I was meaning by Penny was that she's known really well in the UK. You know, I'm going to Hong Kong now for 9 days away from my 3 children and left my 11-year-old extremely upset with reading on the front pages of the newspapers that her mum is this and that and some really disgusting names. You know, I just don't expect, when you try your best, to be attacked the way I was attacked, because that's just not nice for anyone. Is that okay?
She knew what she was doing. She used that relationship and the emotion and the drama of it all, you know, to boost her business. The tragic thing as well was that they were supposed to have been friends, so it wasn't just a ruthless business decision. She was quite prepared to risk what was being portrayed as a wonderful friendship, to have that one-upmanship and to get the headlines, the horrible headlines.
Hello, everyone. Hi. Michelle's strategy with Rachel and Penny has paid off.
Right, okay, just you pack it in, and I'm not going to give you any pictures.
As she celebrates Ultimo's 10th birthday, she finds ever more inventive ways to stay on the front pages.
To be a success in the lingerie industry, you need to advertise and spend millions. Now, where she was clever was she never really needed to spend millions because she was getting all this free publicity.
The knowledge gained from Michelle's modelling days is finally bearing fruit.
She realised that sex sells stories. There was an atmosphere in the papers that Page 3 was going to be on its way out, and editors were getting a bit nervous. She came along with this great PR idea, gave them really good quality pictures of well-known ladies, and it was free. The newspapers didn't need to pay for them, which is very important.
We've had many famous women in the past, Rachel Hunter, Helena Christensen, Girls Aloud, Mel B from the Spice Girls, and it does really help us. We are always in the papers and magazines, and we love it and they love it.
It was manna from heaven for the editors, so that's when it really put her on the map.
Not only is Michelle courting celebrities, she's become one herself. And she isn't afraid to air her opinion on other people's business performances.
You've got to get on with people. Yeah, I got on with all of my staff members, I got on with all of our factories and all of my customers as well, because they trust me. People don't want to work with people that they don't trust.
It's great that everybody loves you, and it's great that you speak for the whole nation. You're a great person, and I'm
but
not
you know
as great
what,
as
Katie?
you.
Do you know what? Hold on a wee minute. Do you know what? You speak as if you have made it. You are not even that close away from making it.
By 2010, Ultimo's turnover has reached £10 million. They've grown so much, they've had to move to their own purpose-built offices just outside Glasgow.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Very good.
Nice to see you.
Wow, thank you very much for
Welcome.
letting me in.
This is our Scottish headquarters, and we've got Hong Kong and we've got China as well. I wanted it shaped like a breast, so you're now in the breast of the building.
You're not winding me up. This is
No,
that's
honestly,
real.
It's real, yeah, and it's kind of shaped like a double D. So there you go.
Michelle, at this point, was becoming more confident and powerful. She had moved on to a different level as well.
What? Is that wallpaper?
Yeah, it's wallpaper. Uh-huh.
She wanted to be known more as Michelle Mone. It wasn't always about Ultimo.
What's that one?
Apprentice, yeah.
Hello Magazine, Michelle?
No. The Michelle wall.
Michelle started to be a little bit more paranoid. She didn't always trust everybody in her staff, so that created a more tense atmosphere.
Who was the last person to get sacked? Well, when was it? This morning?
No, it was a couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks
I
ago.
wouldn't say sacked. No, we just had an agreement.
She could be quite vicious verbally in how she treated folk. She could be really nasty, hence the reason Michael used to spend a lot of his time doing industrial tribunals.
Not only is Michelle's relationship with her staff deteriorating, so is her relationship with Michael.
By that phase, Michael was pretty stressed out with the differences in their leadership styles and their personality styles. I think by that point he was kind of worn out with the work it took to keep that close marital and business relationship together. Michelle was, still looking now at what comes next. And Michael, I think, would have been very fine to sort of, let's sort of consolidate and let's give ourselves some peace. And the stress and strain, between them personally was definitely draining.
I think Michelle would never be satisfied with whatever she achieved. She always wanted more. So more sales, more recognition, more of everything.
One of Britain's most successful businesswomen, Michelle Mone, joins me now. Does that feel good to hear that? Does that always feel good?
Yeah, I don't really believe it, but there you go.
Oh, really? Do you not feel successful?
No, I don't think I've made it yet, to be honest.
Ah.
But I've got a lot more goals to come, but we'll see.
I know she was wholeheartedly driving for the top, and I don't think she realized the cost she was going to incur for that consistent drive.
Our
trustee and well-beloved Michelle Georgina Mone.
She wasn't the hugely successful entrepreneur that she said she was.
She's admitted lying about her role in a contract for PPE during the pandemic.
You've admitted today that you lied to the press and by extension you lied to the public.
Laura, saying to the press I'm not involved, it's not a crime.
One day when I was at work in the news section, a news page landed on my desk. It was a story about Ultimo, and I believe the top line was something like, new Ultimo bra is the next best thing to a boob job. And then there was a picture of a model in a bra. The headline, ultimately was women still selling bras. So I didn't think it merited a place in the news section of the paper, and the story didn't run. I wasn't a big fan of the way Michelle was promoting the business and the way she was targeting women's insecurities with that. Being quite young and a little bit silly, I alluded to the situation in a post on Facebook. I mean, classic error. The problem was that Michelle was upset and had phoned up the editor and shouted about how upset she was that some people who she'd never met had had a conversation saying they really thought she wasn't very nice. I didn't really think it was a big deal. But then when my union suggested I might write a letter of apology to Michelle Mone, I realised that this maybe was a bigger deal than I thought, and that this was someone who was going to start to try and make my life difficult. But not just my life, the life of various other people who had posted comments underneath mine on Facebook.
Businesswoman Baroness Michelle Mone has sent me an extraordinarily aggressive message, complaining that a company she's helping isn't getting the multi-million-pound contracts it deserves.
When I read the extracts from Matt Hancock's book, it just seemed absolutely mad that she would still just be conducting herself in the same way when there was these huge contracts at stake.
I am going to blow this all wide open, she threatened.
I, Michelle Baroness Mone, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
How would you describe Michelle in 3 words?
Impossible to ignore.
Style over substance?
I have to watch out for being defamatory.
Shameless, self-promoting grifter.
This is one of Britain's most extraordinary business stories.
Michelle Mone is 29 and made millions from a gel-filled bra.
About a woman from humble beginnings.
No matter where you're from, look at me, you can do it.
It's Michelle Mone.
Who fought to become one of Britain's most celebrated female entrepreneurs.
It's tough, and there's a lot of people out there to put you down. I mean, I'm not frightened off by it because I've always got something up my sleeve.
Reaching the upper echelons of the British establishment.
My goodness, Michelle, who knows what you're stepping into?
She's now embroiled in one of COVID's biggest scandals.
How did Baroness Mone end up with nearly £30 million of taxpayers' money in her bank account?
But is she a villain or a victim?
We've been their scapegoats, and they have destroyed our lives for over 2 years.
Mr. Gove, why didn't you call out Baroness Mone's lies?
This is all a cocktail of fame, lies, money, politics, national emergency.
It's got all the ingredients of a modern-day fairy tale. But when you lifted the covers away, there was something disturbing about the fairy tale.
Forwards? How did that happen?
I think this is the millionaire because she's got a nice smile. I think this lady's the millionaire because she looks happy and rich. She looks like she's thinking in her mind that I'm so happy for myself that I'm a millionaire now, and I've got so much money and I can buy anything.
A decade on from first launching her Ultimo bra, and Michelle Mone has become one of Britain's most celebrated female entrepreneurs.
Nearly 1,000 local and national heroes have been recommended to the Queen for a New Year's honour. And one of the winners is Michelle Mone, the founder and co-owner of lingerie brand Ultimo. She's been given an OBE for services to the lingerie industry.
The nod of recognition from the palace bolsters Michelle's status.
But it's just been an amazing day. It just feels like a wedding day. And I'm over the moon, absolutely over the moon.
In 2010, Michelle was awarded an OBE. It wasn't particularly controversial at the time. I mean, I know in some business circles people raised some eyebrows because they felt there was perhaps an award for self-promotion and PR rather than for outstanding business success.
This is dedicated to all the Ultimo team back at home and all the people from Scotland and Glasgow. I'm really, really proud.
Michelle may have been projecting an image of success, but in her personal life back in Glasgow, the reality is different.
Lawyers for the Ultimo lingerie tycoon Michelle Mone have confirmed that she and her husband Michael are to separate. The couple continue to work together in their business MJM International.
One of the stresses and strains towards the end of Michael and Michelle's marriage came from the fact that Michelle, as a woman, felt great about being able to be the brand face and actually model some lingerie or swimwear. For Michelle, it was exciting again because she got to reclaim her 18, 19, 20-year-old self. She was a model when Michael met her. And so this was great for a woman to go, oh, look, after 3 kids, I can still do this. That was absolutely not something that Michael, her husband, wanted to see her do. Michael would have preferred for his wife not to be the face of the company in lingerie and swimwear. Michael clearly had had enough of the stress and strain of Michelle now promoting Michelle.
You look fabulous.
Thank you.
Incredibly well, beautifully slim, and you're very happy.
Yeah, a day at a time. You know, myself and my husband did unfortunately split up at Christmas time, and yeah, he went away with my designer, and heartbroken for 5 months. But you know, onwards and upwards. You've just got to move forward. No more tears. Not
Well,
crying
actually,
anymore,
we did
not
speak to your
smiling.
husband, and he's not here to defend himself, but so we can't talk much more about that. It's fantastic that you're looking so great, feeling brilliant. Thank you so much for coming in
Thank
today,
you.
and hope to see you again. I'm sure I will, as you continue with your rise.
Her marriage had broken down very, acrimoniously. She'd been claiming that her husband had an affair when he was absolutely adamant he hadn't. They started a relationship until their marriage had broken down. And that really was the start of a slightly negative narrative.
As Michelle and Michael's relationship deteriorates, their staff are caught in the crossfire.
My take on the general atmosphere in the East Kilbride office, as far as the staff was concerned, it was a mix of sadness and disappointment by those who had been with them, for so many years, and a lot of tension.
When their divorce is finalized, Michelle buys Michael out of the company and partners with a Sri Lankan clothing manufacturer.
It was quite clear they both wanted to take control of the company. She was obviously working on the premise if she got control of the company, she would have all the staff.
One employee who starts having problems with Michelle is her operations director of 10 years, Scott Kilday.
Scott was basically unhappy with his working experience at MJM, and he was looking at what his options might be if that unhappiness deepened. On one particular day, he phoned me to say that he'd just discovered a recording device in a plant pot in his room. I don't remember any client at any point in my career ever making a similar phone call to me. It was exceptional.
She thought Scott was in Michael's camp when they were trying to move the business forward.
That's the recording device, and there is attached to it a wire which was wrapped round one of the plant pots. I think his main reaction when he first phoned me was what you might call incredulity. He could not believe it. And frankly, I was horrified that they were doing that. What we learned at the Employment Tribunal was that one of the Sri Lankan investors had authorised the placing of the bug. It was his decision to put the bug in, and he'd left the logistics to the people on the ground, including Mrs. Moan. As far as I understood it, they were putting the bug there to see if he was leaving, and also whether he was sharing information with anyone about the company's business. Scott was very pleased to win because he felt he'd been badly treated. What they did, in my opinion, was a very gross breach of his privacy and a gross breach of trust.
Despite her legal challenges, Michelle continues to remain in the public eye.
Welcome back. Next to face the chaser is one of the United Kingdom's most successful female entrepreneurs. It's Michelle Moan.
And she is also starting to reevaluate her future.
When Michael and Michelle divorced during the process, it was, as you would expect, a time of hurt, a time of grief, a time of self-analysis. And I will tell you, as we've all seen in the press, Michelle typically doesn't look like a person who's going to calm down and sit and self-reflect. She flew over to Florida, and we did a week of very, very deep introspection that Michelle is not comfortable doing. I brought my entire team together, and we did do what is known as the Lovelight Solutions work, S-O-U-L-U-T-I-O-N-S, digging into the soul. How are you connected to the divine, Michelle? These are not comfortable topics for a lot of people, and not comfortable necessarily for the East End of Glasgow on its way up. It's like, no, let's go. Who am I now? Who am I without Michael? Untwisting those beliefs we hold about ourselves that are the limiting beliefs. So Michelle could release herself from those unconscious constraints and create her next phase.
The seeds for Michelle's next move were actually being planted in 2012. Her knack for publicity is about to put her at the centre of a political battle brewing in Scotland.
David Cameron and Alex Salmond meet today as two leaders in one United Kingdom. They both know they could in future meet as leaders of two foreign nations.
Ready? Ready for you?
In a historic move, Prime Minister David Cameron and Scotland's First Minister Alex Salmond agreed to a referendum on whether Scotland should become independent from the United Kingdom.
The two men have agreed on a simple yes-no vote on independence. No other question will be asked. And they've agreed that it must be held before December 2014.
I think for most people, Michelle came onto the political scene and made a political stand around the time of the independence referendum.
Lingerie tycoon Michelle Moan says she's withdrawing her support over Labour's economic policies.
She had been a supporter of the Labour Party, but later defected to the Conservatives shortly before they were elected in 2010, and David Cameron really promoted her.
We're talking number 10 here, so the surroundings are quite imposing. It is set up so that people understand that if they have been invited into number 10 for a meeting with the Prime Minister, then this is a moment of some significance.
David Cameron has invited Scottish business leaders, including Michelle, to share their views on the campaign against independence. which his government is backing.
Michelle Mone, just physically, as a woman, stood out in the room. She came away with this quite remarkable line about the campaign, and she said, you know, you remind me of my bra technicians, which I think was saying that, you know, you were all about the process and not about the creativity. Some would have bristled slightly at it. I remember I made a particular quip just to take a bit of the tension out of it, and saying, well, yes, we're all about wanting to improve support. I think she would have felt that she'd achieved what she was there to do. She'd been noticed.
You're one of a small number of self-starting entrepreneurs who've come out for a no.
I am so passionate about Scotland. I love Scotland to death, but I don't think that this is the answer. And I would say if there's too much risk in any business, don't do it.
I certainly don't remember her having any formal role within the campaign, but she took a role in her own right in terms of being a woman in business in Scotland who is known to the press and media already. Anything she said was going to be news.
Isn't it hard to say that you passionately love Scotland and yet at the same time say that you will leave the country if the vote doesn't go your way?
Well, that's my belief, and you know, I don't want to be part of something that I don't believe in.
What was interesting about Michelle is that she said she would leave the country if Scotland voted yes. So it was interesting, like everything else in her business life, you know, she made it about very personal to her.
It's a movement, and it's a movement for social democracy. The winner in all this is social democracy. I think we're the envy of the world. I think the world is looking at us slightly agog at what's going on in Scotland, and I'm so proud of our country.
We're all passionate about Scotland, whether you're in the yes camp or the no camp. I'm exceptionally passionate about Scotland. I grew up in the East End of Glasgow and I've built my companies here. So I am Team Scotland, but I'm in the yes camp.
Do you think
that... No camp. No.
I just had to remind her.
Yeah, just remember.
We've got a convert. Isn't that wonderful? We have live on television, we have a convert.
Sit behind you. Why not?
No, but no.
Scotland says yes! Scotland says...
There was an enormous amount of hostility towards anyone who stuck their head above the parapet, and that might be on social media. It would be on the street.
Oh my God! Oh my God! What about that?
It's the only time in my life I've ever actually been spat at. The fact that she put herself out there, she would have been a target.
You have been vocal about your decision to vote no, and you've received a lot of backlash for that. Are you surprised by that?
You know, I've got about 800,000 people on Twitter, and, you know, this sort of abuse that I am getting is off the scale.
After 2 years of campaigning and passionate debate, the people of Scotland are finally able to cast their votes to decide whether Scotland should be an independent country.
The majority of valid votes cast yesterday by the people of Scotland in response to the referendum question, should Scotland be an independent country, were in favour of no.
The people of Scotland have turned down the offer of independence and voted to remain part of the United Kingdom.
With Michelle on the winning side, she starts to signal a greater interest in politics.
David Cameron had beaten Alex Salmond in the Yes campaign in Scotland. The following year, he'd beaten Labour in the general election. He was a winner.
When I stood here 5 years ago, our country was in the grip of an economic crisis. 5 years on, Britain is so much stronger. But the real opportunities lie ahead.
Post the independence referendum, David Cameron wanted to sort of promote the union. Hey-ho, Michelle is suddenly announced as being a new business startup czar for the UK.
Businesswoman Michelle Mone has been appointed to the role, looking specifically at disadvantaged communities because of her own story.
I have been there, done it, read the book, got the T-shirt, all the tears and snotters as well along the way, so I understand.
Welcome to Web Cameron. Watch out, BBC. Oh, I'll do it in a minute.
I think what you've got to remember about David Cameron is that he's a good PR man.
We are lucky enough to have the Prime Minister in the studio tonight. Alongside him, we have one of Britain's foremost businesswomen, the founder and chief executive of Ultimo Bras, Michelle Mone.
He knew he had to turn the Conservative Party round and modernise its image. And he obviously thought he could apply the same in Scotland by bringing in some fresh faces. And Michelle would have been one of them.
I've got a very talented bunch of members of Parliament, 140 of whom were elected at the last election, and it's right that some of them should be serving in the government. So there's an opportunity to bring forward some fresh talent.
Women and Northerners, I noticed.
There
Does
was
that mean
a
you had a
mixture
problem?
there was a mixture of people.
Somebody somewhere whispered in his ear that this would be a smart idea. She's got the great story we all know about, poor background, successful young entrepreneur, a woman in a man's world. Tick, tick, tick. When the czarship was announced, alarm bells started ringing with me. I was editor at the Herald at the time. Knew about her business background, and it wasn't the success that people had been led to believe. So MGM International was always a small business, and these accounts bear that out. In 2010, they had a turnover of £10.1 million. It never got any greater than that. 2009, they had a profit after tax of £674,000. The following year, 2010, that was reduced to £481,000. And then as you go through the accounts, 2011, that profit for the financial year fell to just below £1,500. It's 2012, they posted a loss of over £500,000. And so by that time, the company was in real trouble. She was often referred to as a business tycoon. Now, if you look up tycoon in the dictionary, it doesn't say somebody running a small business with abbreviated accounts. She wasn't the hugely successful entrepreneur that she said she was.
And our guest of the day is a woman who pulled herself up by the bra straps, Michelle Mone, founder of the £43 million Ultimo lingerie empire. We'll talk to her a little bit later.
What she was very adept at doing was portraying something, not always filling in all the facts, but then allowing the journalists to maybe fill in the facts for themselves.
What's the right figure?
Papers say 55, not 43.
OK, what do you say?
Don't know. Depends when you sell it. I'm not for sale.
She helped to create a mirage, and many people bought into that. The business wasn't quite what we were being told it was, but you gave her the benefit of the doubt because she's a female entrepreneur in a man's world, and we wanted her to succeed. We arguably should have done more in the sense that the business story wasn't truly being told.
So, long time had passed since I'd been involved with Michelle, although I kept an eye on her. I got a call one day from a Conservative peer who's a very good friend of mine and I've done a lot of work with. And he said to me, I'm just phoning you in the off chance, do you know a woman called Michelle Mone? And I think I groaned when he said so, and he went, oh, right. I said, why? And he said, there's a proposal to make her a peer. And I honestly burst out laughing. And he went, but we've been told that she's a multi-millionairess and she's one of the most successful businesswomen ever come out of Scotland. So I went through the history, the fantasy world, the money they had lost, and all the things she'd done. He said, oh, this is very serious. He said, that would be a real embarrassment. I said, anyway, who's pushing this? And he said, David Cameron and George Osborne. I said, why? He said, well, David Cameron believes that they need, A, more Scottish Tory peers and more females. I remember thinking at the time, Cameron and Osborne have completely lost the plot here, as they lost the plot in quite a lot of things.
In the summer of 2015, Michelle announces her departure from Ultimo.
So the next phase in Michelle's life, after that few years of self-reflection, recreation, deciding who she's going to be, part of that involved moving to London. She had taken a beautiful place overlooking the Thames, right next to the Tower. Elegant, a great statement to herself of, now here we are. There we see London, here I am. She was going to begin mentoring other young entrepreneurs, and so we began to lead weekends in that apartment of just small private groups of folks who wanted to be able to do what she did. That's also the time I sat with her. I can still see we're having glasses of wine. It was past twilight, I think, overlooking the river, when she said, Ted, I've got to talk to you about the fact that David Cameron just called me. And you can't say anything about this yet, because I haven't decided what to do yet. But he's asked me to be in the Lord's. And can you imagine us sitting there overlooking the twinkling lights of London and the river going, look at you, my dear. Look at you. From the East End, from the mortgaged house, from all the financial trials and tribulations, all the ups and downs in the press, and here you are, girl. What an amazing place to be. That was a critical moment in time in her life.
Left school at 15, like a non-starter, written off already.
It's been an incredible amount of hard work and lots of risk. I was determined to make something of myself.
To the Right Honourable David Cameron, 10 Downing Street. Dear Mr. Cameron, I have never written to any politician before. I feel compelled to write to you. Miss Mohan is not a successful entrepreneur. She is a small-time businesswoman with a PR exposure far in excess of any actual success.
Douglas Anderson is Managing Director of Gap Group, a business with annual revenues of £150 million, employing 1,300 people. He's written to the Prime Minister condemning the appointment.
In my opinion, business is 95% graft, 4% luck and 1% glamour. And I think she should stick to the glamour end of it. I'm a proud Scottish person. And I don't like anybody, but especially don't like Scottish people being less than truthful. If the only thing she achieved was self-publicity, I don't think that's a very good reason to put you into the House of Lords. If you follow that logic, then the House of Lords will be full of influencers in the next 10 years. Clearly I achieved zero. Made me feel a bit better, but it doesn't count for much.
Elizabeth II, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of our other realms and territories queen, know ye that we, of our especial grace, do by these presents advance, create and prefer our trusty and well-beloved Michelle Georgina Mone, officer of our most excellent order of the British Empire, to the state, degree, style, dignity, title and honour of Baroness Mone of Mayfair in our city of Westminster, to have and to hold unto her for her life.
I think when Michelle stepped into the Lords in that world, it was completely different than the world she had lived in before.
I, Michelle, Baroness Mone, do swear by Almighty God that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
In all honesty, Michelle wasn't really ever involved in politics. And she doesn't have the public school background and the advanced degrees. So it was a whole new world.
Most Scottish peers will choose a kind of Scottish town or a name or something related to family, but no, it had to be Mayfair for her. She would have endeared herself to the Scottish public if she'd said she would like to be known as Baroness Mone of Denniston. They would have loved that in that area, but no, she'd moved on from that.
With Michelle making inroads into the establishment, her personal life is also on an upward trajectory.
I've got 5 homes around the world, and this is certainly the biggest. Not bad for a rough-house Scots git from Glasgow, really, but there you go.
In 2016, Michelle announces her relationship with billionaire Doug Barrowman.
That boat is turquoise, a complete replica of what the real yacht looks like. I always like to smile when I go on board and stop smiling only when I leave. And you have to spend it on something. There's a limit to how many houses you can have and private air travel.
Doug is the founder of the Knox Group of companies, which deal in financial services. Companies linked to the Knox Group have been called out for promoting tax avoidance schemes, which were later outlawed by the government.
And we talked about at the design stage you were going to build a touch-and-go helipad. Have you incorporated that?
I haven't, actually. It sounds something that I haven't done.
You could say it's more a gimmick than a practical, usable thing, but it's one of those boxes that a yacht of this size could have.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. We can put it on, whether it would really get used.
That's a nice problem to have.
Doug lives in the tax-friendly Isle of Man. After Michelle moves in, she shares her opulent lifestyle on social media.
A clean, organised, perfect dressing room. Yeehaw.
Doug may have amassed a fortune, but that doesn't stop him and Michelle from looking into new opportunities to make money.
New cryptocurrencies are still being minted. Baroness Michelle Mone and the investor Doug Barrowman have launched a new one, especially for venture capitalists. They join me now.
In 2017, there was this massive explosion of interest in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other so-called cryptocurrencies. Some of them were seeing, literally tens of thousands of percentage point increases in value, and everyone wanted to get in.
Our cryptocurrency, Richard, you can do it 3 ways. Yes. So, number 1, you can trade it like any other cryptocurrency. 2, you can hold it. Or 3, you can invest in the businesses that Doug has put together, this board of highly successful global entrepreneurs.
I quite like writing stories about people who are considered to be kind of baddies, and I like sometimes finding the humanity in those baddies, and sometimes just digging up dirt on the baddies.
When we talk about Bitcoin, the first thing that jumps out at me is that it's always been tarred with that sort of underworld brush.
So everything is transparent, everything is on a ledger, and I wouldn't be getting involved in anything, being a baroness in the House of Lords, if anything was dodgy.
I'm always very sceptical about people who are getting involved in the world of crypto, because it was a complete Wild West. Like, there was absolutely no regulation. We got an anonymous tip from someone in the Isle of Man saying that there's some weird stuff going on around Michelle Mone and Doug Barrowman's company and that we should look into it.
Jemima notices a payment dispute unfolding between Michelle and Doug's company and their so-called bounty hunters, who are freelancers hired to promote Equi Capital online.
The bounty hunters were told that they were going to get $10,000 to share between them, which would make for less than $10 each. When some of these people started kicking up a fuss, they were threatened with police. They were kind of warned not to defame Equi. It got really quite sinister.
It was Jemima's next discovery that would provoke the biggest response.
They then announced that Steve Wozniak was joining Equi. And Michelle Mone announces this on her Twitter account, saying that she can't believe it. This teenage idol of hers, Steve Wozniak, is joining as a co-founder. Steve Wozniak, the co-founder of Apple, regarded as quite a kind of legend in the world of tech. And he'd actually left Apple in '85 when Michelle Mone was 13 years old. The idea that as a teenager growing up in Glasgow, she had idolized Steve Wozniak sounded a bit off. So we decided to look in her autobiography to see whether she had mentioned her adoration for Steve Wozniak. It turned out that she mentioned Richard Branson a couple of times, and she mentioned Sylvester Stallone 4 times, and that seemed to be her real idol. At this point, you know, it's very silly kind of, you know, I'm investigating who her idol is. It's not exactly hard-hitting journalism, but at the same time, she is a baroness and she does stand as a peer in the House of Lords. We should expect these people to tell us the truth.
Jemima approaches Michelle for comment.
I had this person, Heather, replying and saying that she was the press officer to Michelle Mone. And I don't know this person's surname, so I have no proof that this person exists. So I did kind of wonder whether this was, you know, Michelle Mone herself. The emails came with a UK Parliament disclaimer at the bottom. So it was clear that this was coming from some kind of parliamentary email system. It was just an odd thing to be getting threatening emails from, you know, a peer of the realm. I got an email saying that I'd become obsessed with Michelle Mone, which, in all fairness, is partly true. Increasingly, I was kind of threatened with lawyers, basically trying to get us to stand down. It was all quite kind of scary. My editor said, this is absolutely absurd. We should use this in the story. We take quite a solid stand on these kinds of things, and we're not going to be intimidated by someone's celebrity lawyers. It seemed to me that she was kind of someone willing to go to any lengths to make money. She's completely shameless. And I think if you have no shame, you can get quite far.
It's been confirmed that a mysterious new virus that has killed 4 people in China can be passed from person to person.
The first cases of the new coronavirus have been confirmed in the UK.
There have now been 4 deaths from coronavirus in the UK.
759 have
5,300. 39,728 have now died.
Thousands of frontline doctors are still not getting the personal protection equipment they need to treat patients with coronavirus. The Doctors' Union says it means some medics are likely to become very ill and some may die.
This is a box of masks that we've been using today. You can see the white sticker saying 2019, so that's out of date. The sticker that they've covered up the out-of-date sticker with is out of date.
No ink, friends? No problem. Big bag.
I never thought I'd be in a first world country, you know, wearing plastic aprons. We do fear for our lives.
PPE! PPE! PPE!
Much like the rest of Britain, Michelle and Doug spend most of 2020 at home. They enthusiastically clap for the NHS from their estate on the Isle of Man. Despite the distance, Michelle keeps the public informed about how she's coping.
Hello, Michelle.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, lovely to see you. Now, it looks very glamorous where you are. Tell us, where in the world are you?
Well, we're in our home in the Isle of Man. We were getting married on May the 2nd, but obviously that was postponed. And I was determined to fit into my dress. We'll do a boot camp outside, so you actually don't need to have, you know, your own professional gym. Now, lucky we have that, but you don't need to do that.
A lot of small businesses are struggling at the moment. How's business for you?
It is absolute hell out there. I'm not going to deny it, and it's really bad for people. But if you are negative, it will just get worse. And I know that that's easy for me to say. Look at me sitting here, but you've just got to be as positive as you can.
The pandemic may be hitting many industries, but one sector is proving particularly lucrative. A global shortage of medical protective equipment, PPE, means the government starts awarding multi-million-pound contracts to those able to supply the goods. And some people are starting to ask questions.
I'm Joe Morm, I'm a King's Counsel and I direct the Good Law Project. We spend time trying to keep governments honest. They certainly need to be held to account. I was starting to have questions in my mind about the basis upon which vast sums of public money were leaving the public purse and finding their way into the bank accounts of rather odd people. Then somebody sent us a raft of internal government documents which referred to the existence of a VIP lane.
The VIP lane seems to give selected companies higher priority when bidding for multi-million-pound PPE contracts.
They had created a special team of civil servants to deal with VIPs, and the work that we did suggested that VIPs were being paid much higher prices than non-VIPs.
Jolyon may have found proof of a VIP lane, but he doesn't know who's getting the preferential treatment. His suspicion is it's companies with links to the Conservative Party, and one company in particular catches his attention.
We first became interested in PP MedPro in about October 2020 because there was a publication of a contract and I spotted a connection with Doug Barrowman, who I knew from my days as a tax lawyer, who I certainly thought of as something of a rogue.
Jolyon shares his findings with journalists who also want to know which companies are benefiting from the VIP lane.
The Good Law Project was extremely smart at just seeing that there were connections from this company, PP MedPro, to people who worked for Doug Barrowman. All UK companies have to be registered on this public register called Companies House. You could see that the directors of the company work for Michelle Moan's husband, Doug Barrowman, his firm in the Isle of Man. And one of them actually worked for Michelle Moan's media activities company. I did think that is really quite interesting, that there are links to this Conservative member of the House of Lords, Michelle Moan. Because if it was true, then it was evidence that the government was giving £100 million contracts to people politically connected to them. So I just emailed the press at michellemoan.com and said, the VIP lane is for companies who are recommended by people with connections to the government or the Conservative Party. Was that you, because you're a Conservative member of the House of Lords? Very, very quickly, we just got a really serious legal letter absolutely denying any connection of Michelle Mone to PPE MedPro, with a threat that if you go on and publish this, then you'll be defaming Michelle Mone because you'll be reporting something that isn't true. So for me, there was nothing really more that we could do.
In November 2020, Michelle and Doug finally get the glamorous wedding ceremony they've been hoping for. Something Michelle posts on her social media, alongside other updates of her and Doug's luxurious travels.
I think it was in the summer of 2021, so still in the pandemic, and she had literally posted a picture of herself on a yacht, and it was called Lady M. And she'd posted this thing saying, business can be challenging, but it is rewarding.
Back in London, Jolyon Maugham is still trying to get the government to disclose who was in the VIP lane.
So we were starting to build a list. I think we had maybe 9, 10 contracts that we knew had been run through the VIP lane. We wanted to know the names of all of the companies on the VIP lane, and we wanted to know who had referred them into the VIP lane. So we had this mammoth Freedom of Information Act battle with government.
The Department of Health published this list in November 2021. On that list is PPE MedPro, and the person who referred it was Baroness Mone. When her name appeared on that list, then we did feel really strongly, actually, I must admit. We did actually feel very strongly then. We did actually feel like we had been lied to the year before. I got back in touch with those lawyers on that day and said, what is this? And part of what they did at that point was start to, what we call dance on the head of a pin, saying that, okay, she recommended the company to the government. But apart from that, she did nothing else in relation to PPE MedPro. And there was one very key phrase that I remember coming from one of the lawyers that said, she has no involvement in the business. But we got information that she was involved and that Doug Barrowman was involved. We did our own Freedom of Information request. And we got the emails that she'd sent to Michael Gove and Lord Agnew saying that she was offering to supply PPE through my team in Hong Kong and that it had gone through the VIP lane. And we also got some WhatsApp messages that Michelle Mone had sent about the PPE deals. And she said she was sitting on the jet and it was about to take off, which we assumed was their jet, their private plane. And I also got a lot of information from another source about the gowns contract and the fact that this contract worth 122 million that our government had paid for sterile surgical gowns that are really, really important PPE. They hadn't been used and that the government and the NHS had rejected them on delivery.
With Michelle's role as a lawmaker at the heart of the controversy, more sources leak evidence of her links to PPE MedPro to journalists.
My colleague was sent an email from the Chief Commercial Officer of NHS Test and Trace. And she sent it to colleagues saying that Michelle Mone was going to Michael Gove and Matt Hancock that day because she was incandescent with rage at the way that PPE MedPro had been treated. Now, this is at a time that Michelle Mone was denying any involvement whatsoever with PPE MedPro.
Not only are journalists uncovering evidence, the National Crime Agency launches an investigation into PPE MedPro, and several of Michelle and Doug's properties are raided, including their estate on the Isle of Man.
You're going from the realms of, that's interesting, to, that's quite a fierce response of theirs, to, oh my God, she's on the list, to the National Crime Agency executing search warrants on their homes.
Michelle and Doug's lawyers continued to deny the couple's involvement with the company.
We had the evidence that they'd been lying, but they kept doubling down on it, attacking us, attacking me.
2 years into his investigation, David finally gets evidence of the money trail.
We were leaked a document that had been produced by HSBC Bank, Doug Barrowman's company's bank. It showed that from the profits of PPE MedPro, at least £65 million had been paid to accounts of Doug Barrowman in the Isle of Man. And one of the transfers was just about £29 million into the Kerristal Trust with a K, and the people who stand to benefit from the money in the trust were Michelle Mone and her 3 adult children.
How did his colleague, Baroness Mone, end up with nearly £30 million of taxpayers' money in her bank account?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me say, like everyone else, I was absolutely shocked to read about the allegation.
I do hope that she's not on her yacht trying to do a run.
There's no question that Michelle Mone and Doug Barrowman became sort of pantomime villains in the story of the huge shambles of what went wrong with PPE. For Michelle Mone, public attention, knowing how to grab public attention, is an ability that she obviously always had in spades during her business career. But things went wrong for her, and you can't turn that attention off.
As public debate rages over Michelle and Doug's involvement with PPE MedPro, pressure mounts on the couple to come clean.
They had made this decision that they weren't going to talk about what had happened. They obviously knew that they had been lying at the beginning of it. So they felt they couldn't do anything about that. So they were in this trap.
After 3 years of denials, Michelle and Doug changed their tack. They commissioned their own glossy YouTube documentary filmed at their estate, finally admitting the full scale of their involvement in PPE MedPro.
Well, I was a conduit. I was a liaison person. I brought, it all together. I wanted the guys to succeed. I wanted the NHS to succeed. I wanted a win-win situation for everyone.
They also agreed to do one interview for national television to address the speculation around their case.
I think that she concluded in the end it couldn't get any worse. It was a huge moment for them. They knew they hadn't been telling the truth. So what must that feel like? If you know that you've been involved in a big public lie, and then suddenly you're going to have this moment, you're going to sit down in a chair and the cameras are going to point at you, and what are you going to do? What are you going to do? On the day, the whole experience was sort of eerily calm.
Do an old-fashioned clap, just excuse me. I'm set.
Okay, happy, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Happy? Okay. Just to be crystal clear, because this is at the heart of it, and I know you want to get the facts out there. We want to be completely crystal clear. Do you admit today that with the way that you've currently got your finances set up, that one day you and your children will benefit from that money? Because you right now are listed as the beneficiaries of that trust.
If one day, if God forbid, my husband passes away before me, then I'm a beneficiary as well as his children and my children. So Yes, of course.
It's almost like a circular argument, Laura. You can never win that one.
But it's important to get to the detail, and, you know, by your own admission,
Sure.
by not coming clean at the beginning, it's left you with this problem where lots of people might be listening to this and thinking,
Sure.
I really struggle to trust what they're saying.
But that is the truth.
What do you hope that 2024 will bring for you, legally, for your reputations, and for you personally?
I don't honestly see there's a case to answer. I can't see what we've done wrong.
But after everything, you can't see what you've done wrong when you've admitted today that you lied to the press, and
That's
by
not a
extension,
crime.
you lied to the public.
Laura, saying to the press, I'm not involved to protect my family, can I just make this clear? It's not a crime.
In the end, they were, I mean, bizarrely, quite honest about not having told the truth, which is quite a strange experience. And then, as she so memorably said, but Laura, it's not a crime to lie. Now, that's a phrase that will always stick with me. And when she said that, I thought, there's a thing, there's a headline.
Michelle Mone and her husband have admitted lying to journalists, but maintain they've done nothing wrong, saying this was a legitimate business deal that made a legitimate profit.
It wasn't her fault, she says. No one told her what the rules were.
To take advantage of a situation like that, there's something obscene about it.
Government is taking action, legal action against Michelle.
Has to be removed from the host.
This has been described as a car crash interview on the scale of the Prince Andrew one.
After finally admitting her involvement with PPE Medpro, Michelle has taken a leave of absence from the House of Lords and no longer has the Conservative whip. She has done no further media appearances. She is still under investigation by the National Crime Agency, and the government is suing PPE Medpro over the rejected gowns.
Well, I guess you reap what you sow, don't you? You know, if she has used the rules for personal advantage, huge personal advantage, exploiting a pandemic in which thousands of people died, people are very angry about that. It's a much more serious matter than, you know, telling a lie about Erin Brockovich's bra.
I think Michelle Mone's story, what it does tell us about modern Britain is we still like fairy tales. We want to believe those rags to riches tales. But once you step into the world of politics, things can get a bit trickier. It's a parable of excess, hubris, and then eventually nemesis.
Growing up, could you have imagined yourself as Lady Mone?
No, never in a million, billion, trillion years. What it shows is that, you know, if you're willing to work hard, take risks now and again, that you can make it.
She was never going to fall back even one step.
Survival. It's your survival.
You know, I have at the back of my mind that I could lose it all tomorrow.
3 words to describe Alec. Oh my goodness. Fierce and patriotic.
Cheeky chappy.
Egocentric. Generous.
A flawed man.
So Alex is a pal. Gosh, Alex was a pal.
He took risks. He liked gambling.
Complex.
And a one-off.
He lit up every single room.
Scotland's view of itself will never be the same as it was before Alex Salmond became First Minister.
Alex Salmond put the best case for Scottish independence, but ultimately it wasn't good enough.
I have experienced some really significant moments in my life at the side of Alex Salmond, but I have to appreciate the fact that lives are complex and that there are often contradictions in people that you encounter.
September 2014, the final few days of campaigning in the independence referendum.
This, in my estimation, has been the greatest campaign in Scottish democratic history.
Everywhere you went, you know, posters going up, big flyers, and people that you didn't expect getting involved in it, in small communities, big communities. It was a party, everybody was out, it was fantastic.
Change is in the air.
We could see the groundswell of opinion, and we could see the engagement of people who'd never been engaged in politics before.
And one man is at the centre of it.
This is our opportunity of a lifetime, and we must seize it with both hands.
You just had to look at Alex as he went out onto the streets of Scotland. It was a hero's welcome every time. And so many people turning out engaged in the process. All eyes of the international community were upon Scotland.
Don't let them tell us we can't. Let's do this now.
Alex Salmond had worked his whole life to get to this moment. He was raised in humble surroundings in Linlithgow, the son of 2 civil servants.
Well, we grew up in what was then the same small town in West Lothian, so I've known him for 60 years. He was a cheeky chappy as a young laddie, but respected by the teachers. We grew up in a council house in West Lothian. His mother and father were well integrated in the community.
When I was a boy, I played football dawn, break time, lunchtime, immediately after school, until past sundown. You know, that's what I did. That's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a footballer.
Tynecastle has seen of some mighty battles in this east-west struggle for supremacy. Is bathed in sunshine this afternoon.
Early 1960s, every 7 or 8-year-old wanted to be a football player for one team or another. That was the summit of life's ambition.
On to Fleming, Jim Fleming. And there it is, a goal!
My dad and I, therefore, were Livgay Rose, the junior side in Livgo, and Hearts supporters who both played in Maroon. And this was incredibly economical. One set of scarves, which was ideal for both teams.
As well as an interest in football, his father inspired an early passion for risk-taking.
My late father loved a poem about the Marquis of Montrose, or actually a poem that the Marquis of Montrose, a great cavalier of Scottish history. He actually wrote, he either fears his fate too much or his deserts be small, who dare not put it to the touch, to win or lose it all. And that was drummed into me as a young lad, because my dad on a Saturday morning used to march around the house reciting that and other poems that he liked. It was a good advice in politics that you didn't take foolhardy risks, but calculated risks.
He clearly became very active in politics when he went away to St Andrews University as a student.
I was a left-wing Scottish nationalist at a right-wing, privileged, highly anglicised university, and I had a great time. Coming was an act of rebellion in itself, almost an anxiety to demonstrate that, regardless of where your cohabitees at university had come from, you could come from a comprehensive school in Scotland and demonstrate you could do as well, if not better, on anything.
This ambition to better and to disrupt would be the tenets of his approach as he entered politics.
This is a powerful and a very carefully phrased resolution, but the justification is that we face a Tory government.
Alec at that point was a younger version of the Alec that we've all seen. He was very, very confident, super confident. He could be very argumentative, which will come as absolutely no shock to anybody who's ever met him. And we were in, obviously, quite a heated political atmosphere. The SNP had just done very badly in elections.
It's a government of occupation we face in Scotland, just as surely as if they had an army at their backs.
He quickly established a successful career as an oil economist. He married Moira, his boss at the Scotland office, when he was 24 and she was 40. And he really started to make his mark on the SNP.
The 79 group was formed, which was then seen as the Socialist Republican group within the SNP, as it was self-termed, and Alec and I were both early members of that. People like Rosanna Cunningham were fairly prominent members.
Alec was very much part of that, and as the few years went past of the 79 group's existence, Alec became much more one of the central figures of it.
His membership of the 79 group, which staged a walkout at a party conference, was to be his first act of out-and-out political rebellion.
You have to remember the SNP in the 70s was a deeply conservative organisation. They weren't called the Tartan Tories for nothing. And to have this bunch of young radicals who like to think of themselves as socialists, whether they were actual socialists, I'm not entirely sure, was actually a shock to the system and a challenge to Gordon Wilson, who was the leader of the SNP at that time.
I knew Alec, first of all, when I was just a schoolgirl, when he was selected as prospective parliamentary candidate for Banff-and-Buchan back in 1986. Looking back, I reflect on how young he was. He was only in his early 30s, and yet he struck a very commanding presence even then. And he was talking about issues that nobody else was talking about.
When I joined the SNP, there was 2 members of Parliament. You'd have to be some kind of idiot to join for career reasons. So whatever else the SNP lacked, it certainly had the strength of the vast majority of people in it were there for the right reasons. They were there because they absolutely believed passionately in the cause.
His career as an elected politician began at the age of 32, when he took Banff-and-Buchan from the Tories.
Well, we're joined now by Alec Salmond in Aberdeen, the new SNP MP for Banff-and-Buchan. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, there's Alec Salmond, Margaret Ewing, Andrew Welsh. Would you like to be leader of the SNP?
I think that's a question for the future.
I'm David Davis. I'm a backbench member of Parliament. I cause trouble. We both arrived in 1987 as brand new MPs. With our own reputations, I guess. And the next few years was an important time. It was the end of Thatcherism. It was beginning of Major.
Alec Salmond quickly made his mark in the Commons.
I propose to abolish all the higher rates of income tax above 40%.
He interrupted the budget and then used that platform to talk about the issue that was on the doorsteps, was on everybody's mind, was the poll tax.
I beg to move that Mr. Salmond be suspended from the service of the House.
He was very good at looking to how he might be able to turn an occasion to his advantage. From a party of 3 parliamentarians, to make your mark, to be noticed, to be on the public stage, It's something that he did, and it was his strength of character and personality that led to him being able to do that.
Margaret Ewing MP 186. Alex Salmond MP 486.
Just 3 years after being elected to Parliament, he took the helm.
He became leader of his party quite quickly, and he took what was essentially a fringe activity. I mean, nobody really took any of the nationalists seriously in the House of Commons before he became leader of the Scot Nats. By the time he'd finished, they pretty much had to take him seriously.
I remember a Labour guy actually saying that Alec was the best leader the Labour Party never had. And he probably would have ended up as Prime Minister if he had, but that he had made a sort of wrong choice.
The people of Scotland largely were putting their trust in the Labour Party. So we had to make ourselves relevant. But I think Alec is responsible for that evolution of the SNP, I would say, from a movement to a serious political party. And not just a serious political party, but a party that was ready for government.
By the end of the 1980s, the campaign for a devolved Scottish Assembly was gaining traction. A cross-party group was set up to create a blueprint for a new Scottish Parliament.
And of course, one of the ironies of that was that the Nationalists had stayed outside the convention. So they weren't part of that debate. So the debate was less about independence versus devolution. It was more about how do we create the best form of devolution and then win popular support for it.
The SNP leader decided to completely change direction on devolution.
I interviewed Alex Salmond in January 1995, and Salmond, he had this idea that devolution could be a stepping stone to independence. He had a very Salmond-esque way of putting it. He said that better a slice of bread than nae loaf. But at that time, it was very controversial within the nationalist movement. I mean, the fundamentalists within the SNP, they saw devolution as a unionist trap. If we got devolution, we were going no further. Salmond got into a lot of trouble as a result of this. There was a meeting, effectively a vote of no confidence in his leadership, and he won that vote. And that was a kind of tipping point in the history of the SNP.
He teamed up with his political rivals to campaign for a yes vote in the 1997 referendum on Scottish devolution.
Donald Dewar reached out to Alex Salmond and courted the SNP to come into the campaign and to support the campaign, whatever reservations they might have, and that certainly helped us ensure there was not a divided campaign.
Well, tonight, the Scottish people have given an overwhelming vote of confidence to a Scottish Parliament. Donald Dewar called it a modern Parliament for a modern Scotland.
Alex Salmond had helped deliver the Parliament, but the first Scottish election was not without its challenges for the SNP leader.
Just at the very start of the election campaign, there were two, I think, significant moments. The first was Alex's criticism of NATO's attempts to save the people of Kosovo. And then secondly, there was this proposal to raise income tax in Scotland from John Swinney, supported by Alex, that I think did cost them votes.
Good evening from Edinburgh. Wreathed in the sea fog they call the Ha, where the first Scottish Parliament for close to 300 years will be run by a coalition. Labour won the most seats, but not an outright majority, and will try to reach a deal over the weekend with the Liberal Democrats.
Alex Salmond was elected to the new Scottish Parliament while he was still serving as an MP at Westminster. Overall, his party trailed Labour, coming second in the poll. Still, this was a landmark moment for Scotland.
The Scottish Parliament adjourned on the 25th day of March in the year 1707 is hereby reconvened.
For lots of people, myself included, it was one of the greatest days of my life. I mean, people were hanging out the windows as the MSPs of all parties were cheered into the Assembly Hall, which was serving as the Parliament. They were cheered into the Parliament.
He was leading the second biggest party in Scotland's new Parliament, but cracks were beginning to show in his leadership, including with the party's treasurer at the time.
I think it's fair to say that there was a clash of sorts between myself and the party leader.
The row became public at a party conference.
Blackford stood up in front of all the cameras and effectively accused Salmond of financial irregularities with his expenses.
There was one office bearer in particular who would not abide by the limits that were accepted by everyone else.
Things like spending £1,000 a month on taxis, using party funds to take members of his family on trips to Brussels with the party footing the bill. And this was an extraordinary moment, really, because this was the leader being challenged in public, in front of the cameras.
Totally untrue. It just indicates how you get dragged in to that sort of level of debate by someone as base as Ian Blackford.
I think the cumulative effect of all this must have been that he felt he was no longer in total control of his party. And I think that was those are the circumstances in which he decided he was going to call it a day after 10 years.
I've done 10 years. As I said, I've enjoyed it enormously. I've got absolutely no doubt, I've got complete conviction that the SNP will win the next Scottish elections, and that will be a platform for taking Scotland forward to independence.
What are the things that you've neglected over the last 10 years that you'll now turn to?
Golf.
John Swinney was elected leader, with Roseanna Cunningham as his deputy. Alex Salmond was expected to take a back seat.
But is there a worse circumstance for taking a country to war with no consent at home and no consensus in the international community?
He wasn't out of frontline politics, having never given up his Westminster seat.
People have said that that's because he was always more comfortable there. He liked the life in London better than the perhaps more exposed life in the Scottish Parliament.
John Swinney's tenure didn't last long. After disappointing European election results in 2004, he stood down. The SNP was looking for a new leader. Roseanna Cunningham and Nicola Sturgeon, Alex Salmond's favourite candidate, entered the race. He had initially ruled himself out of running for the leadership.
If nominated, I'll decline. If drafted, I'll defer. And if elected, I'll resign.
Salmond was an oil economist. Roseanna was very much a socialist and would have taken the party in a socialist direction that was anathema to what Salmond thought at the time was necessary.
When Roseanna Cunningham looked to be leading the race, he made an unexpected announcement.
So it is then with a degree of surprise and humility, but with a renewed determination, that I must tell you that I am a candidate for the leadership of the Scottish National Party.
He persuaded his political protégé Nicola Sturgeon to shelve her own leadership ambitions and stand as his deputy.
If I'm elected deputy leader with a leader at Westminster, then that obviously involves leading the Scottish Parliamentary Group, and that's a huge challenge, but a job I believe I can do well. And most importantly of all, I think Alec and I together can be a winning team that puts the SNP back on track.
What happened in 2004 is a thing that happens in politics. I knew when Alec came back into the leadership race that I had no chance. What I wasn't going to be forced into doing, though, was stepping out of the way.
He roared to victory, becoming SNP leader for a second time, with Nicola Sturgeon as his deputy. It was the start of a winning partnership.
When I started working at Westminster, I recall that the SNP was leading the charge on issues such as the cash for honours crisis and the opposition to the Iraq war. And that's not bad for a party of only 6 MPs.
A month ago, he said the only circumstances he would go to war without a second resolution were if the inspectors concluded there was no more progress, which they haven't. If there was a...
He knew how to get the SNP to punch beyond their weight. And his weight of personality, more than anything else, helped us in 2007.
Labour had dominated Scottish politics for decades. But at the Scottish election in 2007, that was about to change.
The SNP had a lot of momentum behind them in 2007. They had developed a very modern campaigning style, but you know that was a campaign style that had an impact.
I heard a rumour. I think we won the election.
On the day after the election, I was sitting at home and the phone went, and all I could hear was the sound of a helicopter.
We got 1 seat more than the Labour Party did, and Alec helicoptered into Edinburgh.
Alec spoke and said, "Can you get to Edinburgh as quick as you can? I think we're going to be there or thereabouts in winning the election." And as I crossed the Forth Bridge, I remember listening to the radio programme, and Bill Whiteford said, "We're now going to go live to Prestonfield to hear from Alex Salmond."
Scotland has changed for good and forever. There may well be Labour governments and Labour First Ministers in the decades to come, but never again will we see the Labour Party assume that it has a divine right to rule Scotland.
And basically planted his feet on the ground and just said, "We are the government." I'm not sure anybody else in the SNP, would have done that with the single-minded determination that he did it on that day, and what might be described elsewhere as sheer bloody brass neck.
And I remember feeling a profound sense of joy that what I'd done for the last, 28 years of my life of campaigning for the success of the SNP had suddenly got to a real landmark moment.
I declare that Alex Salmond is selected as this Parliament's nominee for appointment as First Minister.
For the first time, Alex Salmond found himself in government. The gambler, the political risk-taker, inspired by his father, who shared the moment with him.
My dad's here as well today. My father has never seen me in a parliamentary chamber because he always refused to set foot in the Palace of Westminster. Some people say I should have heeded his advice.
I recall in the first few weeks of being in government that a lot of the senior ministers and advisors, myself included, felt a little bit like fish out of water. This is the first time the SNP had been in government, but not Alec. He took it to the manner born, and he wanted to do things.
He changed the name of the Scottish Executive to the Scottish Government pretty much overnight, sent a team of guys down to Victoria Quay and just did it. And I admired that kind of chutzpah, you know, just going for it. And it was also a declaration of intent. We're not going to come in and just administer. We're not going to be just moving the dominoes around a wee bit. We're going to govern in a big, wholehearted way. And, you know, shortly after that, the tolls came off the bridges, prescription charges were scrapped, tuition fees, which had been sort of taken off by the previous administration, but that was absolutely that they would be free.
The new First Minister was a demanding boss. Journalist Kenny Farquharson observed him at close quarters.
Every conversation was an arm wrestling competition that he had to win. Just like every time he walked into a room, he had to dominate it. He had to demonstrate that he was smarter, he was funnier, he was more of an alpha male than anyone else in that room.
My relationship with Alec was cordial. He never actually lost his temper with me. I was aware that he could lose his temper, but I'd always argued with Alec right from the get-go in the 79 group. And it may be that he knew he would just get an argument straight back again if he lost his temper. It wouldn't frighten me or scare me because, in a sense, the nature of the long-term relationship I had with Alec was one of argument.
We hear it said you can be tough. Are you really tough on colleagues? Can you be intimidatory sometimes? Can you be too hard, too aggressive sometimes on colleagues or people who work for you?
Yeah, tough, sure. I have never asked somebody to do something that I wouldn't do. And I've never asked somebody to do something that I know that they couldn't do.
Often when we refer to Alec as a heavyweight, if I were to put it this way, that he can throw his weight around, it can be intimidating. He will allow people to challenge him. I think it's absolutely fair to say that. But there are certainly times where he would stamp his authority, and someone that's been on the other end of that, it's not a pleasant experience, and you have to be aware of what and who you're dealing with.
Alex Salmond knew that to grow the SNP vote, they had to win over communities which traditionally voted Labour.
He was interested in people. He wanted to know about people, what issues they were facing in their daily lives. That's a true politician, understanding on the ground sentiment, challenges people are having, difficulties they're having, successes that they're having.
He would look at certain groups within Scotland and think, why are they not coming towards the SNP? I remember before the referendum, my husband and I were walking into Celtic Park, we're football fans, and I overheard three sort of working class men in their 50s saying, as we're walking along, yeah, I think I'm going to give the SNP a go. And I almost fainted. And that's when I knew a shift was coming, that whatever work had been done, not only by him, you know, he wasn't doing all this himself, but he had managed to get a lot of people within the party and move the party to being more inclusive.
This work paid off spectacularly in 2011.
Well, I heard another rumour. We've won another election.
We started off that campaign behind Labour. I remember a poll showing Labour reasonably ahead, quite a distance ahead of us when Parliament went into recess for the campaign. And the next 6 weeks were electric. We arrived in Kilmarnock, maybe our second campaign visit in that election. The reaction on the ground was pretty poor. It wasn't anti-SNP, nobody was caring. We returned to Kilmarnock about a week before the election and the place was buzzing. There was people on the streets, we were getting pictures taken, all the feeling, the vibe, the atmosphere was completely changed. And in that short period, we had completely turned things around.
It was an astonishing experience to go around doors with Alec, go up and down the street with Alec, because he would just hang out over people's garden gates forever and a day.
Alex Salmond is one of the best political operators I've ever seen, in my career anyway, and one of the finest political communicators. With Salmond, it was a very different thing. It was a very specific kind of Scottishness that was very couthy and reassuring and unthreatening.
Look what they've done. A predominant yellow there for the whole of the country of Scotland.
The electoral result was unprecedented. This was a system devised to ensure that there could never be a majority, and he broke it. It is unlikely that will ever be delivered again, but he did. And I have to say, he was delighted. I remember in one of the few unguarded moments where he let rip an expletive when it was announced, you know, just what had been done.
He was pretty overwhelmed by it. I know he was, because I was next to him and on the helicopter going down, and he kept looking across all the constituencies. You know, over the landmass, and he was getting really excited, and he was saying, "Oh, we've won that, Jeff, we've won this place, oh, that's ours, SNP hold, SNP win," and it was quite funny to watch, actually. I think he understood that to be First Minister, he had to change his character from being a protest politician, a rabble-rouser, to one of a statesman and one that was ready to lead the country. And I think that being First Minister was the making of Alex Salmond, but in my opinion, it was also the making of the position of First Minister as well.
His partnership with Nicola Sturgeon was the most important of his political career, but it was his wife Moira who was his closest confidant.
Moira was absolutely central to Alec's life, and you were never in any doubt. She doesn't seek the limelight herself. I think what she made for Alec was a place for Alec, for him to go back to being Alec, and not the First Minister, not the leader of a country, but Alec.
My name is Gerard Burns. I'm an artist. My wife and I had a dinner with Alex and Moira on numerous occasions. I was able to witness him switch from being First Minister to being a man, a guy called Alex Salmond. People might be surprised to hear this, but Alex was actually quite a quiet individual. And certainly seeing him with Moira, you got a much softer view of the man.
The biggest test of Alex Salmond's political leadership was about to come. A majority at Holyrood paved the way for an independence referendum.
My name is George Osborne. I used to be the Chancellor of the Exchequer. I think the kind of clearest memory I have before we got to the battle of the referendum in 2014 was actually when I was the Shadow Chancellor on a flight to Edinburgh, and I sat next to him on the plane just by kind of luck. And he laid out to me basically the plan. He said, you know, Gordon Brown is about to become the British Prime Minister. I've known Gordon for a long time. He will never win an election against you guys. So you're going to be the government in London. That will be the moment for me and the Scottish Nationalists, and we will have that referendum and we will beat you. And I said to him, well, I agree with quite a lot of that, Alex. I think we will be the government, but I think we will beat you in a referendum.
In 2012, Alex Salmond negotiated with David Cameron to transfer the powers needed for the vote to take place.
The referendum was only approved by the British government because they thought they were going to crush independence and that they would kill it off forever.
I was surprised at Cameron Osborne agreeing that. They didn't really understand this electorate in the way that Alex understood it. They didn't understand some of the inwardnesses of Scottish politics, the problems of a long-standing Labour domination and what that did. So they didn't really, I don't think they really knew what they were doing.
So it was a question of whether we kind of stalled or said, yeah, OK, you wanted a referendum, let's have it. I mean, it was a big gamble, but it was a gamble worth taking.
Alec got his way. He got his way over the franchise. He got his way over the timing. He got his way over the question. So everything that was material had Alec's stamp all over it.
Oof. The emotional journey of 2014. Alec loved it. You know, he was right front and centre of it all. It was quite a joyous time. Now, I have to say, even though I was in Yes Scotland and I did 60 meetings or more and travelled up and down the country and made almost every board meeting, I never thought we'd win. I thought the forces against us were, but I suppose my attitude was I wanted to run them close and maybe give them a wee fright, which would be not too bad a thing.
Although the campaign started in 2012, it really hit its best point in the summer of 2014 and in the last weeks leading up to the vote itself, because everybody was getting involved. We saw the setup of pensioners for Yes, farmers for Yes, gingers for Yes, you name it. It was every possible campaigning group.
So 2014 was pretty much a watershed moment. I decided to put on an exhibition. My dad was one of the sitters, Judy Murray, Ewan McGregor, and I asked Alex. So I went through to meet Alex in the Parliament to speak about the portrait. And then he said, I mean, obviously you can paint me thin. And I said, well, no, I can't. It's warts and all if you're going to do this. I said, but you've got 4 months, so you could lose some weight. So you're speaking to the First Minister of Scotland. I kind of one eyebrow. I said, and if I could be so bold, perhaps the 5 and 2 might be the way to do it. So that's what he did. And he lost, I think he lost about 3 stone.
As support for Yes was rising, a leaner Alex Salmond was under pressure to explain exactly what an independent Scotland would look like.
I don't think that the SNP were ready yet for that referendum. They go into that referendum without having resolved one of the absolutely central issues, which is what is the currency Scotland is going to use the day after it votes for independence.
I want you to contemplate for just 1 minute the fact you might be wrong. What is plan B?
We'll take the pound because it belongs to Scotland as much as it belongs to England. It's our pound as well as your pound.
You can't say you want to be independent and then say, but we're going to use someone else's currency. It was really a hopeless position for the SNP to get themselves into. And it opened the door to this ridiculous situation from their point of view, where they were saying, look, we know George Osborne, he's actually going to let us use the pound. And I was saying, well, I am George Osborne, and I can tell you, we're not going to let you use the pound.
As soon as Osborne says you can't use it, when you could have an argument, but, you know, there's a problem, there didn't seem to be a plan B.
Alec did what he always did. He thought, OK, I've got to turn this risk into an opportunity. And, of course, he came out with a who is it for them to tell us what currency we use. But, of course, there was an underlying issue there that the No campaign returned to, that perhaps we weren't as prepared for as we should have been.
Support for Yes continued to grow, though. 12 days before the vote, a shock poll put them ahead for the first time.
You know, that really, focused minds in Downing Street. And we did everything we could. We dropped everything else we were doing, focused everything on persuading Scotland that they could live within the United Kingdom whilst having a lot of autonomy.
When that famous poll came out, or we got briefed about it in advance, I was asked to try and suppress it. I was asked to try and get on the phone to the Times and the Sun, and even I placed a call in New York to a certain Rupert Murdoch to try and get him to not publish it, because Alec's view was that if that came out when it did, there was going to be a hell of a reaction. And in those kind of moments of heightened tensions, let's say, and heightened campaigning, that might not play to our favour if the UK establishment, as he put it, would come with all guns blazing. We wanted them thinking that they were still narrowly ahead. I was unsuccessful, obviously. I mean, I think it was quite naive of me to think that I could stop these big media houses from publishing what was a sensational poll, but I tried nonetheless.
In the days before the vote, the No campaign pulled out all the stops.
Let's confirm that first result. Clackmannanshire has voted no to independence, 19,036 votes for no, 16,350 for yes, and that's particularly bad news for the yes side.
We prepared two speeches, a yes and a no speech, and he says, look, Jeff, I think we can safely say only one speech is required here. That was heartbreaking.
After 307 years of union, at the very first time of asking, the people of Scotland have turned down the offer of independence and voted to remain part of the United Kingdom.
The votes were counted, and the yes side was defeated by 55 to 45%. Alex Salmond announced his resignation as First Minister and as SNP leader.
It has been the privilege of my life to serve as First Minister. For me, as leader, my time is nearly over. But for Scotland, the campaign continues, and the dream shall never die.
I knew that he was going to resign. I was one of the few people that he'd told in advance. And if I had one, perhaps, regret, that was maybe not talking him out of it at that point. I was quite selfish. I was knackered, and I was wanting out of government altogether because I couldn't face another, a few years of this. And so I wish perhaps I'd had that conversation with him, but he was pretty set in his mind.
In Aberdeen, I met him in Moira, and it was not long after the referendum, and he was like, he couldn't walk down the street. Like people shaking his hands, and even people who didn't vote for him, they admired him for sticking to what he believed in and all of that, and shaking his hands. And I was going, oh, look at this. This is like, and he said, yeah, I don't think all of them voted yes, though, or whatever, and laughed about it. And then I said, what is that about? He said, oh, Scotland loves a defeated hero.
I don't think the party was quite ready for him going. But then, party chose another First Minister very quickly, and then moved on, as one must, regardless of the results. Politics keeps rolling forward, and all political parties have got to pick themselves up and move on to the next thing.
Good morning, everybody.
Nicola Sturgeon became First Minister. Alex Salmond was in the background, just one of a record number of SNP MPs at Westminster.
Nicola was pretty much you know, astounding all that she surveyed. I mean, remember, she had the Rock Tour practically straight after the Indie Rev, and there was capacity audiences. I can remember going to the Hydro and not getting a seat for a political event. It was extraordinary. So, I mean, in a way, Alex was eclipsed very quickly.
I think Alec was a bit frustrated that there was sometimes a tendency to see him as a problem to be managed rather than a resource to be deployed. I think he was quite respectful of Nicola's chance to do her own thing, but at the same time, I think he was frustrated to see the SNP being outmanoeuvred a bit in political terms.
Well, both times Alex Salmond resigned as SNP leader, he was a complete nightmare to the leader who came in to replace him. He was a complete nightmare to John Swinney in the early years of the 21st century, and he was a complete nightmare to Nicola Sturgeon. He was incapable of standing back. He was incapable of thinking that he wasn't in charge and that his view wasn't wasn't correct.
He had expected Nicola would maintain the same sort of way of governing and the same focus and independence that he had pushed out for those long years from 2007, and that she basically, not exactly welched on the deal, but went her own way, and he felt took her foot off the pedal.
Ian Blackford.
Alex Salmond's return to the Commons meant working alongside a former adversary within the party.
We agreed to meet, and when Alec made it clear that the past was the past, we developed a decent relationship as colleagues in Westminster. Quite often we would sit on the benches together. I do think one of the other parliamentarians actually referred to us at one point as the Chuckle Brothers.
6 years after winning a majority at Holyrood, Alex Salmond loses the first election of his life.
Just a phrase from an old Jacobite song. So laugh, false Whigs, in the midst of your glee. You've not seen the last of my bonnets and me.
It was difficult because he'd lost the election, but perhaps more so because he'd also lost his father. And Alex is a very strong family man, loved his family dearly, loved his father dearly. He's told me that, don't worry, but my dad cast his postal vote for the SNP before he passed. But then beyond that, he just started to look to the future, because he may have lost his seat, but Scotland hadn't lost the election. The SNP had won the election in Scotland.
I think it was very obvious that he was not ready to step back. Lots of people close to him were suggesting that this was a point where he could step into more of an elder statesman role for the party. And yet it was just clear with Salmond that he wanted to be on the front line and he wanted to be in the limelight still.
Retirement wasn't an option.
He, I think, took the really bad decision of starting to broadcast with RT Russia Today. And he kept broadcasting despite the Salisbury poisonings.
Each one of those programmes independently produced and edited. We had the whole say in what we did, what we filmed, who we interviewed, and it featured politicians from across the political spectrum.
Alec being Alec, he's always been centre stage, and I guess with his personality, when you're no longer in that position that you've been, it can become difficult. What I regret is that, given what Alec had achieved, there was a role for him to play as elder statesman of the party, but he took himself off in a direction that, well, let's just be charitable and say was disappointing, and certainly the experience with RT is a very good example of that.
I remember I was on a train station platform waiting to catch a train to Edinburgh to go to Holyrood when I got a message from my editor saying, "What on earth is going on?"
Former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, has denied sexual misconduct allegations made against him.
The allegations that subsequently were made about Alec came as a great shock to most of us.
Well, I was very shocked, but I think I was also quite confused because I found it very hard to reconcile that with the person I'd known for a long time and worked with and thought I knew. So, you know, it was really confusing.
I've made many mistakes in my life, political and personal, but I have not sexually harassed anyone, and I certainly have not been engaged in criminality.
Alex Salmond came out fighting. He accused the Scottish Government officials who initially investigated him of bias.
He wanted to make it plain that he was completely innocent and that he had been put in this situation by an antagonistic government.
He sued the government he'd led for 7 years, and he won.
The government have made an abject surrender. I'm just sad that it was necessary to take this action in this court of session to prove that point.
But there was much worse to come.
Former First Minister Alex Salmond has been arrested and charged. He's expected to appear in court this afternoon.
The situation facing him couldn't have been more serious. Alex Salmond would stand trial accused of offences against 9 women, including sexual assault and attempted rape. He denied all the charges. After listening to the evidence, the jury acquitted Alex Salmond on all of them. He walked free from court.
Nobody's ever suggested that Alec was a saint, but he was certainly not a huge sinner deserved to be stoned, which is what was actually happening in these circumstances.
Above all, I'd like to thank my friends and family for standing by me over the last 2 years. As many of you know, there are certain evidence that I would have liked to have seen led in this trial, but for a variety of reasons we were not able to do so. At some point, that information, that facts and that evidence will see the light of day.
I think it's impossible to imagine the impact that something like that has on any man. No smoke without fire, tarred with that particular brush.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
I don't think it would have mattered how many times he was acquitted. In some people's minds, he was still a bit guilty. And he had to carry that with him everywhere he went. But I wonder about the state of his health, the weight that he was carrying. There was almost a disregard for his health, which was quite distressing. I suspect that there was a burden there which really was very, very, very difficult for him.
He was cleared of all criminal charges, but the trial had shone a light on the former First Minister's conduct with women at work. Journalist Libby Brooks covered the trial.
Obviously, we know that that Salmond was cleared of all of those criminal charges. During the trial, a pattern of behaviour emerged that I think most people would question in terms of the appropriateness of any senior figure in an organisation. For example, working very late at night with younger female colleagues, encouraging them to drink, taking meetings in bedrooms rather than in sort of more appropriate official settings. He accepted that he had embraced one junior female colleague in a sleepy cuddle, which he later apologised for. His own lawyer described his behaviour as inappropriate.
I'm disappointed. I'm upset, appalled that what came out in the court case was inappropriate behaviour when you're in a position of power, because this is all about power. And that, in many ways, in that he admitted it, was, from a political and feminist point of view, that's unforgivable. Of course it is. Did I ever think that he was guilty of gross criminal intent or conduct? I suppose I would have agreed with the jury in that.
These women stepped up and said, Alex Salmond did this to me. And they had the courage to do so. And they had the courage to stand up in court and give their evidence. And the attitudes towards these women from some of Salmond's supporters is appalling. It's hideous. They want these women pursued. They want these women named because they regard them as the people who destroyed Alex Salmond.
I think it has been a really difficult judgment call for the media, for commentators. It's very difficult because a man has died in a shocking, tragic way, and all of that has to be treated with dignity and respect. My question is whether the same dignity and respect is being afforded to the women who made complaints about his behaviour.
The fallout of the trial would be profound. An increasingly bitter feud between Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon eventually played out very publicly in the Parliament, which they dominated together for over a decade. He accused her of being in the orbit of a plot to smear him, to destroy his political career, and to send him to jail.
As I was watching him on Friday, lashing out, that's my words, against us, I don't know whether he ever reflects on the fact that many of us, including me, feel very let down by him. And, you know, that's a matter of deep personal pain and regret for me. I think I probably should stop there.
Collusion with witnesses. We're talking about the construction of evidence because the police somehow were felt to be inadequate in finding it themselves.
I don't think anybody else could have gone through what Alec did and come out. It would have crushed the normal individual. I know how deeply hurt he was. The individuals he had known, he had trusted, he had shown great kindness and indeed trust in, should turn on him, and they were conniving. That is shameful. So that took a toll, and those who inflicted it should be held to account.
There's no getting away from it. From my perspective, the last few years were hugely disappointing. I know that they took a toll on Alec. There's no doubt about that. And I think that I don't know what I think. Sorry.
It's not just the Salmond-Sturgeon relationship that was damaged beyond repair. Having resigned his 45-year party membership when the allegations were first laid against him, there was no going back for him and for some of his close SNP allies.
Always the cause of independence came first, and he set his mind to thinking about how, in the current set of circumstances, the circumstances he was facing, the people were facing, how he could ensure that independence remained top of the agenda. Hence the formation of the ALBA Party.
We'll be tabling a motion in the Scottish Parliament instructing the Scottish Government to commence independence negotiations with Whitehall.
Alex Salmond enjoyed being centre stage, and he enjoyed political debate. He enjoyed parliamentary debate and being in the parliamentary arena, and I think in many ways he lived for that. I wonder how he felt really in the later years of his life when he didn't have that opportunity anymore.
Alex Salmond spent the last years of his political career on the fringes. His ALBA Party had failed to break through.
The overwhelming feeling I have about it as regards Alec is just that it's been sad, that it was a shame that it ended up the way it ended up. That of all people, I would have thought Alec would have been able to retire into something substantial, continue to make a very substantial contribution.
Speaking 5 months before his death, Alex Salmond was still optimistic about a political comeback.
Now, it took a quarter of a century to build the SNP from 2 and 3 MPs to the dominant force in Scottish politics. So I think ALBA has to be in a rather, from my perspective, more rapid timescale. But the circumstances are the same. I mean, you get your political strategy, you work at your political strategy,
and you keep working at it until you convince people that's the correct way forward. So the strategy of turning a small party into a large party is just the same.
His plans for the future were cut short in October 2024 at a conference in North Macedonia. After speaking at an event, he suffered a heart attack and died a short time later. He was 69.
Got some breaking news we need to take viewers straight to, and that is that Alex Salmond has died.
The former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, has died at the age of 69.
Alex Salmond dreamt of an independent Scotland his whole life. If that dream is ever realised, he will not be here to see it. He leaves behind family and friends. A debate about his life, work and political legacy. And a country forever changed.
Alex Salmond took the Scottish National Party from the fringes of Scottish politics to becoming the government of Scotland.
He's behind you.
And he took us incredibly close to becoming an independent country.
Alec is responsible for getting us that referendum. He couldn't single-handedly deliver a result. That, I believe, is far too much to ask of any individual.
So the legacy is that independence is here on the agenda, and it's the duty of those of us following on from Alec to deliver his dream.
There's been lots of wonderful stuff since he died. Even the minutes hand clap at the Scotland game. I thought that was wonderful.
He was a man of true greatness. I really want to remember that greatness.
I think when you look at Alec, you have an individual who is uniquely talented, uniquely gifted, an outstanding performer on the stage of politics. But there's another side to that personality as well.
All of us as individuals are flawed. Very few of us are flawed and have brilliance. He had flaws and he had brilliance.
We're a sadder country without him. It's just very sad that the tragedy of the last few years and ending this way. But maybe, as Shakespeare would say, 'twas ever thus.